Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Around 6 p.m. on January the 17th, 2019, we do have a quorum here. We will go to agenda item A, order of business, B, call to order, and then number C, public hearing 2017-2018 annual report, taper on accelerated instruction evaluation. Public hearing 2017-2018, accelerated by Dr. Kathy Malerba.
Thank you. President Chadwell, trustees, and Dr. Flores, good evening and happy Board Appreciation Month. This is the required public hearing of the district's annual report. As you may recall from previous years, this is quite a lengthy report in its totality. It includes every TAPA report for every campus and for the district. It includes performance objectives from each campus improvement plan and a whole bunch of other documents that I'll refer to tonight. We are going to continue to print copies of this and put them in public libraries, but for the most part, we're finding folks are able to access this online on our performance indicators page. Then, of course, the TAPA report's already available from the state on the TEA website. So these are the sections, required sections of the report that I'll be discussing, each in turn. And throughout the report, I've really, well, other than the first couple of slides, really tend to focus on some just state and regional comparison data. Other than that, I'll try to move through it fairly quickly. So the PEIMS snapshot date in 2017, we had 777 students more than in the previous year, so some significant growth there from year to year. Our ethnic percentages stayed roughly the same, slight growth in the Asian student population. Not a lot of change here in the program enrollment and other student information, just a slight uptick of 2.7 percentage points in the at-risk category. Just a reminder of a couple of recent accountability changes, especially newer trustees might not remember or be very familiar with, was that in 16-17, TEA made a transition to the current labels that you're getting familiar with, the approaches grade level, meets grade level, master's grade level. But I want to make it clear that those were only label changes. They did not reflect a change in the performance standard. I think I could go into more detail if someone has a question about that. And then, of course, as a reminder that the A through F system was implemented last year for districts. Districts received those ratings this current year. When we receive our ratings in August 19, all of our campuses will also receive an A through F rating. And also as a reminder from the accountability update, those higher levels of performance matter a lot more in this new system. And so that's why I've kind of disaggregated the results the way that I have. So on the next couple of slides, you'll see the disaggregated performance for reading and ELA rolled up across the district, outperforming the state by double digits at each level. The same thing at math, with math, and really quite significant differences at the higher levels of performance. The school progress domain score is something that you wouldn't have seen before because this is really a new component of the accountability system. So this is a sum of all the students who met their growth requirement, plus some students who got half credit based on the amount of growth that they had. And I did kind of double check that to make sure that wasn't being punitive to our students, but it actually resulted, and this would have been a statewide trend, in a little bit higher percentage of kids getting some kind of positive indicator about their growth. And although this number is a little difficult to interpret because of the whole and halves that make up the numerator. When it got scale score adjusted, this was what you would notice as the 89 in the school progress domain. And that included rolling up the math scores to get to the 89. Our campus rating and accountability rating last year was an A. I've included all the subscale domains there for you. And of course, all of our campuses met standard, and success is rated on an alternative accountability standard, and they met standard as well. Just wanted to take an opportunity to highlight again how many of our campuses earned distinctions last year. 69% of our campuses earned at least one, in comparison to 52 statewide, and our middle schools were particularly strong, again, for a second year in a row in earning distinctions. Attendance rates barely moved from the prior year, nothing that got even close to a whole percent. So really solid attendance across all student groups. The only one, if you round it up, special ed, it would also hit 95%. So all of our student groups very engaged in attending school. Our dropout rates are also showing just an incredible level of engagement with our students. We, relative to the state and region, just do not lose students to drop out the way others do. Oops. The inverse of that, of course, is graduation rate. Very solid graduation rate of 96% there across the district. All the student groups also looking very solid. You notice a lower rate for special ed. That is because, of course, anyone who's over age and sticking around to finish their IEP is considered a continuer and not a graduate. So that does tend to suppress that rate a bit. Advanced and dual enrollment course completion still looking very strong. You can see which subjects students tend to uptake the most. Social studies is the highest. Lots of participation in math and ELA sciences among the lowest. AP exam participation and results still looking very strong. So 40% of our students of 11th and 12th graders in this particular slide took at least one AP exam. And of those who did, 78% hit the criterion score, which is far above what the state and region are achieving. Our ACT and SAT participation rates are just still, almost at 100%. This is due, of course, to the fact that we have the SAT school day available to our students. The ACT's rolled in there as well. And then for those who do take SAT or ACT, 41% of those students hit the criterion score, which is higher than the state and the region. In terms of college readiness overall, a metric that includes TSI, which we offer at all of our high schools, that increases the rates even more, 77% for ELA, almost 66% in math of our graduating class of 2017 was college ready on one of these assessments. And of course, that allows them to avoid developmental coursework and taking courses in college that don't bear credit. The new accountability metric, College Career Military Ready, includes some new things, much bigger focus on earning industry credentials, hitting criterion score on AP and IB tests, taking advanced courses like dual credit, and continued solid performance here. When this is converted to a scale score, it actually is an A. It's a 92 scale score. And now I'll kind of move quickly through the rest of the required components. This is my least favorite one because I have the least to say about it. But the full report will be included in the online and paper version. This is just an excerpt showing our total operating expenditures in 2016-17. So this is a lagging indicator. And just highlighting again that as a district, we spend a higher proportion of our dollars on instruction. TEA had a couple of accreditation statuses they wanted, accreditation status and then the special ed determination status they wanted us to share with you. So, of course, the district is accredited. We have the highest financial rating. Our accountability rating is an A. Special ed determination status, I had to dig into a little bit. There are 4 indicators that factor into this, and they're focused on the percentage of students and how they spend their time in the regular classroom versus separate settings. It looks at racial and ethnic disparities in special ed and in disciplinary outcomes, including OSS and expulsion. So we had the highest rating there, meeting requirements is the highest rating. And then for a couple of years now, we've been reporting to the state to confirm that all of our high schools make the ASVAB available to students, and as well as an opportunity to meet with military recruiters. Campus performance objectives are included in the full report. Just want to remind everyone that we do structure our DIP and our CIPs around the strategic plan goals, which were refreshed almost a year ago, and just pulled out a couple of examples for you. They're obviously all available online on our performance indicators page, and then campuses update those quarterly, so when we print the report, the monitoring information will be in there as well. Our report on violent and criminal incidents is next. I'm happy to say that the number and rate of these incidents declined in both middle school and high school. The number declined in elementary school from 20 to 14, but the rate ticked up a little bit because the overall number of referrals also went down, which just resulted in a little weird statistical thing there happening. So as you can see at elementary school, these are all exclusively aggressive type behaviors. Then when you move into secondary, you see higher rates of drug and alcohol types of incidents, and the majority of those are drug and alcohol as opposed to of a violent or criminal nature. The last section is our students' performance in post-secondary, and this is highly related, of course, to our students' college readiness. It's in the high 70% of students who did enroll in Texas schools, that 76% of them did not have to take any type of developmental coursework. And, of course, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board can only track students who enroll in Texas, so we don't know in this report, anyway, much about how our students who go out of state are doing. But of those who stay in 2- and 4-year schools in Texas, our 4-year students have particularly high GPAs, so 65% of them have GPAs of 3 or better. And of our students in 2-year schools, they had 43% had over a 3.0. So both of those showing strong indication of readiness for college, readiness to do well in college. And we just have one last public hearing requirement that I'll pass off to Mandy.
Good evening, President Chadwell, trustees, Dr. Flores. So this will be brief. This is a required component of this annual report, and that is to go over our accelerated instruction requirements and programming. Acceleration is required by statute after a student has been unsuccessful on an end-of-course exam. And so what it says is that prior to the next scheduled administration of that exam, that we must provide some type of intervention for those students. Of course, many, if not all of them, receive interventions regardless of that and ahead of that as well. The district is also required to separately budget for this, and so it cannot be an afterthought in our budget. And then we're required to evaluate the effectiveness and annually hold this hearing with you. The term accelerated instruction is unusually vague in the statute. I don't really know another way to say it. It can be anything from a packet of work that is sent home with a student, perhaps over the summer, to intensive one-on-one remediation. And so the state leaves the decision about how to remediate to the discretion of the school districts. And we have a variety of opportunities that are provided for our students. A lot of that is based on the students' needs, how far they miss passing, in how many objectives are they struggling. Is it just one simple area that we can probably swoop in quickly and shore up, or is it across the board? And so our campuses look at each student's needs in determining how to approach that acceleration. And for the purpose of this review, it's important to know that students who withdrew or moved, their results are not calculated. And also the inverse of that, we will have students who move into our district after a test that they've taken in another district and they've been unsuccessful on that. You'll be thankful to know, as I have always appreciated, we are still required to intervene for them and to do so before they take the next EOC. So it's very important that no student fall through the cracks because they've moved from a district to another district. And so here are our spring acceleration results, and you can see across all of the EOC courses here. which are Algebra 1, Biology, English 1 and 2, and U.S. History. And you'll see the number of students that needed to take the test, and then the passing rate of those students, how many we were able to get through on that round and to be successful in passing. Some of these students have failed only one test. Some you will see, you won't actually see the students, but some of these numbers reflect students who maybe are in different tests. So for perhaps a student not only was unsuccessful on Algebra 1, but maybe biology as well. And so they'll show in both categories. And that concludes the TAPR report and the accelerated instruction report. And we'd open the floor for any questions.
Let me see, we have a comment here. Thank you, Ms. Aguilera. You want to take a report, or you want to take, I don't see your button here. Press your button. I don't see anybody's buttons coming on. So anyway, all right, you just have to raise your hand. We have a few minutes here. We have one speaker. Do you want to ask questions or let her speak first? Go ahead. Okay, let's go ahead and take this speaker real quick. Or it's a he, I'm sorry. Jesus Hidalgo?
Yes. This is Mr. Hidalgo.
Yes, come on down to this.
I have been a sub-teacher for 2.5 years.
Just hold on a minute. People want to hear you. People want to hear you speak.
3 minutes.
It's okay. You can come right here and then.
I have been a sub-teacher in your schools. Well, let me say hello. Hello, good morning, guten tag, bonjour, salam, shalom, annyeonghaseyo, ni hao, chawan, privet, yashufile. That's how I'll address the kids. I have been in your schools 2.5 years as a sub-teacher. I have seen a lot, good classes, bad classes, but the matter that I want to address today is the TAP reports. May I? One for you. Who? May you? 1 minute. It's 3 minutes. I am over. For the acceleration, you don't accelerate your kids. You put a curriculum with full of gaps, some of gaps. I have been in the GT. By the way, my daughter is the state AP. So she beat all the kids, all the daughters in the state of Texas, even your primary schools, your premium schools, we receive a certificate from the government. And here is the TAP report. What about Blue Bonnet? Steve Flores has estado ahí 5 años. You have been 5 years. You failed Blue Bonnet because I have been there. Let me finish. Yeah. With the TAP reports, 5 years, I'm aware the results are not acceptable. You want to recast the statement. Blue Bonnet, Bergman, look at the TAP report you have over there. And the TAP reports are the primary consideration in the evaluation of the performance of the superintendent. That's the Texas Education Code 37003.
Mr. Hidalgo, just you can make your comments, but not directly at anybody on the dais here, please. Thank you.
All right. You have any questions for me, or I am done?
We're not allowed to take offer questions, but appreciate this.
All right.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you for your time. It has been a pleasure to serve you, those kids.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go to a few questions here. I think Ms. Vessa, you're first, and I don't know who's next. Mr. Math, maybe. Go ahead. Okay. Is it working? Try now. How about that? Okay. Try now.
So on slide, on slide 7, there's the performance labels, and I was just hoping that you could go over a little bit more. What does approaches grade level mean? What does meets grade level mean? What does master's grade level mean? What I think there might be a misunderstanding of what those actually mean.
Yes, ma'am, there is, and when TEA was preparing to make this change, I was among those who went down to testify at a TEA hearing about how much we knew this would confuse parents, and it has, not perhaps enough for them to call my office, but I do, hear periodically that folks don't understand what changed and why the labels were changed. And To answer the question, you really have to go all the way back to 2012 when the STAR program was implemented. And if you'll remember, there was supposed to be a gradual increase in the passing standard over a period of time. And the data still, well, I haven't looked at the statewide data for 2018, but over that time period from about 2012 to 2016-17, performance was relatively flat. And so TEA was in a bit of a bind with regard to saying, have we fully implemented this program? Are we going to continue to incrementally increase the passing standard, et cetera? And so changing the labels allowed to MEET's grade level, allowed them to proceed as if the STAR program had been fully implemented and to stop with the gradual increase of the standard. But again, because changing a population level performance like that takes time, and it takes significant investment, and it takes growth and expertise and perhaps more early intervention and things like that. They couldn't completely remove approaches grade level as an acceptable passing standard. So it was really, I know that's a very complicated answer, but that's the fact of the matter.
Mr. Moses, you want to? Okay, Mr. Math, then Mr. Moses, and Ms. Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you. My question is kind of similar, but let me take you through a couple of the graphs first.
Sure.
So let's start with number 8, and I'll just go through these quickly. If I look at MEETs,
Yes.
65% for the district,
Yes.
50-ish for STAR reading for region and state. If I go to slide 9, again, kind of mid to high 60s for the district, 50-ish for state and region.
Right.
Then if I skip all the way to 21,
Slide 21.
slide 21, again, kind of mid to high 60-ish for the district and 62, 54 for state and region. So those seem a little bit low. If I were to show them to just a layman, it's a little bit alarming that half of the students in the state aren't meeting these standards. Am I misinterpreting them, or is it something I should be concerned about?
Well, I'm going to finish one quick thing I forgot to say with Ms. Vessa's question, which is, what do the standards actually mean? And again, way back to the beginning of the STAR program, the what's now called MEETS level with English 2 Algebra 2 and English 3 would have been associated with a 60% chance of being successful as a freshman college student. And the highest level, what's now master's, would have been associated with a 75%. So that's the equivalent of what an SAT criterion score tells you. And then they vertically aligned all the tests. So it's very difficult, of course, to assess a third grader's likelihood of being successful in college, but that alignment process was put in place. So to answer your question, obviously, if I was a trustee and as a community member, I want 100% of my students to have something positive to look forward to after they leave school. And I think the inclusion of things like a military enlistment and earning certifications is moving us in the right direction. But of course, we can always continue to take this sort of one student at a time. There are probably some positive outcomes that are unmeasured in this system. Perhaps you go right into a great paying job because you're great at coding or whatever, and we're not really tracking those things. I think over the next year, I'll be able to share more with you about some of our local partners who have access to workforce data. We're going to try to get more of that to you so you have a sense of which of your students are working in the area after graduation. So we're pursuing a couple of partnerships like that. But then finally, I think the thing to remember about the accountability system is it is a relative performance measure. So as I very quickly mentioned, 68.9% of graduates being CCMR translates to a 92 scale score. So relative to other districts, this is A-level performance in terms of student preparedness. So it's a combination of factors.
So if I were to focus on the 31% in Round Rock that aren't college or military ready, if we were to send them to college, they would probably flunk out or have difficulties, or I'm just trying to kind of assess what this really means.
Well, I think it's a combination of what are all the unmeasured outcomes, for example,
Yeah.
entering the workforce, adding new types of certifications, and then yes, it's finding kind of every child. And I'm going to hand this back to Mandy because I'm getting out of my field here. But
Okay.
Yeah, I would also, excuse me, can you hear me? I would also hypothesize the same. I think that we do see many of our students now in a booming economy that are going straight into the workforce, and they may have earned credits and certifications that don't count on the commissioner's list. Dr. Presley and I had lunch about 6 months ago with a superstar student out of Cedar Ridge High School who he did not go to college because his coding skills were so strong that he was hired by a company here in town making probably six figures right out of high school. So that doesn't explain all of them by any stretch, and we're never satisfied with not knowing where each and every student lands, but I do think that does play a factor in these numbers as well.
Okay. It's very encouraging to see that the district is doing better. I'm just wondering if there's a goal or a target somewhere between 68.9 and 100%.
For me, it's 100%. I mean, it really is. Part of the data tracking piece would really help us, I think, get a clearer number. This one we know does not include all of our kids who leave the system. So there's some complexity, I think, to gathering data to know exactly where all of our students land.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just add one more thing, because I'm always thinking about the district improvement plan. That the current board goal in this area really is around hitting criterion on college readiness scores. But, when we have those conversations about what the board goals are, obviously, that's a good time to have that conversation.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Moses?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, thank you all for putting this together. It's great information to see. And it kind of along with Mr. Math, it is, because really even you'll go back to in line with the numbers you're talking about on the distinctions. High 60s for us or our campuses, distinctions, and then low 50s for the rest of the state. So it's pretty consistent there across. So I'm just curious. I mean, from first, it's like kudos that we're beating the state, but I like hearing that our goal is 100%. I think that's what we need to be striving for and reaching every kid. But I noticed one thing that stood out to me was on slide 15, the dropout. We seem to be really beating the state and the region there. What are some of the things we're doing to continue to have ideally zero, but keep that dropout rate low, make sure we're getting kids through school and graduate?
So a lot of that I would attribute to Thomasin's work at Success High School. That's a very unique program in which we accelerate students through to graduation who are severely at risk for dropping out. And so I definitely want to put that out there. And then at our comprehensive campuses, we have dropout prevention specialists, which the board approved more than several years back. Those positions are very, very, very helpful to us. Our counseling staff. Our new trustees probably know, but may not know that a few years ago the board increased the number of counselors on each of our high schools, and I credit that with our counselors being able to really give more personalized attention to the caseloads that they have on the campuses. We have really shored up our 4-year plans, which are the plans that students make when they enter high school. We have intervention courses throughout all of our high schools in which kids can attend a course. So say, for example, we think that they may struggle with Algebra 1 because they're coming in from middle school and they were maybe not successful in 8th grade STAR, very borderline. Then we have courses designed to front load the content that students are going to receive in their Algebra 1 class. So there's a lot of creative ways that we're approaching this problem, both at our comprehensive high schools and also through Success.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Mandy said. Success does an exceptional job, Ms. Stewart and her staff. But it's very difficult for a student in Round Rock in high school to just disappear. They do a great job of tracking the kids, and if they move away, they find out where they went. Occasionally a kid will just stop coming to school, and there's no address, there's no contact, nobody answers. But we do an exceptional job with our dropout specialist and our registrars and our Success High School to track these kids and try to get them re-enrolled if they're still local, or to find out where they went if they've enrolled somewhere else. And so having an international population like we have, sometimes that's fairly difficult. If they move halfway across the world, where did they go? But it's very difficult for a student just to disappear, and for us not to have the resources to find out where they went or where they're going to school now, or if they're local, we get them back in class.
Yep. And then on slide 25, I just want to make sure I understand. I mean, we all know that accredited is good, A is good, superior is good, A exemplary performance is good. But for our special ed and our armed service vocational, is meet requirements? I don't know, because meet requirements, I don't know if that's average. I don't know if that's the highest. What is that? Just so. Yeah.
On the special ed, I know I printed that one out. It is the highest.
Your mic on?
Okay.
Sorry, maybe I didn't. Oh, sorry. I may not have printed that out. I believe there are 4 levels there, but meets requirements is the highest.
Okay.
And I don't believe there are any levels on ASVAB. I think it's just a yes, no.
Yes or no. Okay. Okay. And then the last one I had is looking at our, again, what was it? It was slide 37 at all the exams. I know if you fail one, you can still graduate or get approved with the graduation committees. Is that captured in any of this data, or how many of our students are impacted by? I know they fail this, but still able to graduate with the graduation.
That is not captured here. We'd
Okay.
be very happy to get you that, because I know Dr. Presley had just looked into those numbers. If you
Yeah, over the last few years, the kids in Round Rock who have graduated with a individual graduation committee have been between 20 and 40. It depends on the number of kids and what their situation is, but that's kind of been the gamut out of which is less than 1% of our graduates.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez.
A quick question on slide 33 when we talk about performance in post-secondary. On the not trackable and not found, I think Dr. Presley might have answered some of that for me, but give me some examples of what those students look like.
Oh, I was just looking at that before I came over. Not found would include 2 groups: students who were not enrolled in a school that
Okay.
reported to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, which also includes our out-of-state students. And almost 10% of our graduates go out of state. So that's a big chunk right there, plus the students who maybe didn't enroll or went to, the schools like cosmetology school
Right.
and so forth do not report to the system. Not trackable, I had just pulled that up, so just give me one second. These are students with non-standard ID numbers that cannot be used to match to Texas higher education institutions. So students perhaps with an S number, they didn't have a social security number
Right.
when they enrolled in school. So even if they're in higher ed, they're not trackable by getting the 2 systems to talk to each other.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Real quick, one more. Go ahead.
You don't have to answer it now, but could you send us, I know that our district has, back on earlier slides, our economically disadvantaged percentile is 25.9. So, in terms of the state, we're pretty low. Can we have some of these statistics for, that group? How are we doing with that group?
Of course. All of the metrics that I talked about are available. I can just make sure you all have a copy in the board update of the TAPA report. In the first column is the state, region, and district, and then across is every student group that is tracked. So it's all right there for every metric, and I'd be happy to get that to you.
And so, in 2 weeks we can click on the link. Is that what you're saying?
Let me go back. Make sure I know what link.
That on slide 2.
Oh, if you're talking about the TEA website, all campuses and districts in the state are already available.
Right.
We're just uploading them to our own site for everyone's convenience, and we have 2 weeks to do that.
Okay. But I would love to see that report if you
Yeah,
could
I'd be
get it
happy
to
to
us.
send that in the board update.
All right. Anything else for right now? Oh,
I did.
yeah, we-
I just had a couple. I actually wanted to follow up on a couple of Trustee Mass questions. On slides where it's the math performance and the ELA performance, when we did our board orientation, you said if they meet masters, we also get a point in meets and approaches. So are these, when you give us 89%, does that include all 3 categories? Or is that just approaches?
Oh, yes. So every one of the 85% is anyone who passed. So that would include the other performance levels. And when you're thinking about the accountability system, you're thinking of that weighted average that has an impact in domain 1 and domain 3. And so that ends up being lower than the overall passing rate.
So do we have a number of, so the students that are just at approaches?
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's.
Oh, you would like to see the percentage of those who were just
the breakout,
approaches.
so we know. I don't know. It's just if that includes masters, then
Yes.
I guess I would like to see it a little bit
More of
broken
the
out.
100% bar chart
Right.
version.
Right, just so we really have an idea, because it does seem like, as some people said, there's about 30% of the kids that somehow we're not tracking. And my other question actually was on the SAT, ACT on page 19. You know, and I love that the district lets, I mean, I have 2 juniors, and March 6th is already on my calendar. And so we have 97% of the kids taking it, but then we have 41% at their junior year that are, that's all that's met or at or above criteria to get into college at that point?
Well, on that assessment, so one of the things that the district's doing well is giving students obviously opportunities to retest and to demonstrate college readiness on TSI, which is, it's just another college readiness assessment. It's a lot less expensive, and it can be given on demand. So that's what, if you look on slide 20, helps us reach the much higher overall level of college readiness, that rather than just relying on one test that you have to pay a pretty good amount for.
Right. So again, we're back to that about 30, actually almost 40%, if you count math and ELA, that aren't ready. And I mean, I had a junior that took it because the PSAT doesn't count anymore for the TSI when you're going to take the ACC classes. So he had to take TSI. But so are these juniors? Are these seniors? I mean, is it both?
This is just graduates.
Just graduates.
And,
Okay,
and that you do have to kind of read the footnotes on all these things. Yes, this is graduates.
Sorry. Okay. So actually, so we had 37% of the kids graduate that couldn't pass both TSIs.
That were not college ready in both reading and math.
Okay.
Okay. All right, go ahead. One.
So I have a question on slide 16 when you talked about the graduation rates for SPED.
Yes.
Can you give me a little more information? I know you said that the ones that continue on until their 21st birthday are not included in that. But what's our rate for kiddos that are students that actually do end up completing the requirements for graduation in those 3 extended years? Do we have a figure on that?
That is not anything I've done
before. Is that something that we track?
Oh, well, we certainly could.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We certainly could. I do not have it at my fingertips.
Okay. And so related to that question on slide 15, when you look at our dropout rate is 0.4%, but then our overall graduation rate is 96.1. So that gives us a total of 96.5% are accounted for. What's the other 3.5% that either don't drop out or don't graduate?
TEA will also count, also continues to track GED recipients and then students who are continuing. So perhaps a student at Success who's there for a 5th year, for example.
So that could be included in our Success students or our SPED.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
SPED kids could make up that 3.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have more detailed reports. I'm happy to answer follow-up questions. The TEA report, the confidential reports break out by every student and where they ended up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for now? Otherwise, Dr. Flores, any comments? So, all right. With that, we're going to go into a closed session. Agenda item C, public hearing. D, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.076. The board will consult with attorney regarding legal issues involving security matters. We'll be back in a little bit. All right. Let's go ahead and get started here. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. We're going to come back into open session at 7:24, 7:25, and we do have a quorum. We're all back here. Let's see. Let us go back to agenda item E, call back to order, Pledge of Allegiance. And I think if we'll all rise for the pledge, And then standing, the singing will be done by the Walsh Middle School tenor and bass choir. So,
good evening. Before the pledge, I wanted to let you know that joining us this evening are 4 students from Stony Point High School who recently represented the Stony Point Future Farmers of America chapter in the 2018 Texas FFA Leadership Development Events Competition at Sam Houston University. They're the first team from Stony Point High School to qualify. In order to make it to state, they placed first at district, first in area, and were among 625 entries across the state. So we're going to have them stand. They're standing. They're going to wave at you. Please join me in congratulating team members Kylie Hayworth, Zoe Elzie, Chloe Ebram, and Virginia Alling. Kylie and Zoe will lead us in the pledges this evening, and following that, as President Chadwell said, Walsh Wildcats Guys Choir, they're all 6th graders, will be singing the national anthem for us. Kylie, Zoe?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
all right. Thank you, Walsh. Go ahead and get started back up here. Get everybody's attention. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we'll go to agenda item F, of adoption of minutes. And there we go. Ms. Gonzalez.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the minutes for the board meeting held on December 20th, 2018 and January 8th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to agenda item G, board recognitions, introductions. Board recognitions introduction for January. Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and also community. We always are so proud at this point to recognize outstanding students and staff. So tonight is no different. Happy New Year. Welcome 2019 to all. And we're going to have another great year. And I was going to say another state championship, but I don't want to put that kind of pressure on the Tennessee. So without further ado, Jenny Lacoste Caputo.
Good evening, President Chadwell, trustees, and Dr. Flores. What a great way to start off the new year, recognizing our amazing students and staff here in Round Rock ISD. We begin tonight with a truly exceptional student. This senior you're about to meet is from Westwood High School. She is the definition of a star student and has been since beginning her education at Laurel Mountain Elementary. She recently accomplished a feat only a handful of students annually across the nation do. She earned perfect scores on the ACT, the SAT, and the PSAT. Millions of students in the class of 2018 took the SAT and more than 1.9 million took the ACT, but only a few thousand hit the highest scores on each. This young woman's academic prowess was first noticed by one of her Laurel Mountain Elementary teachers who suggested she take more challenging classes. Since then, she's earned numerous academic awards. She is a National AP Scholar with Distinction, co-president of her school's choir, secretary of the school's National Honor Society, and she ranks among the top 4% of her 616-member senior class. She's also been awarded the President's Volunteer Service Award Bronze Medal. Her community service includes helping elementary school students prepare for the math pentathlon competitions, counseling middle school students through a peer assistance and leadership program, and performing in dance productions to raise money for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking. So she's a true Renaissance woman. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Pooja Enagala.
Stand in the middle, please. If you guys get a little closer together.
Right.
Alrighty, on 3, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Great job. Now we're going to recognize some of our talented musicians in Round Rock ISD. First up, Cedar Ridge Raider Marching Band, who ranked 11th at state competition, competing against the best high school marching bands in Texas. The Cedar Ridge Marching Band bested 30 school bands to earn 11th place in the 6A division during the University Interscholastic League State Marching Band Contest held in November at the Alamo Dome. It was a difficult journey to get to the state band contest. The band had to place in the UIL regional competition to earn a slot in the area contest, then compete in area contests, which bring together bands from 5 different regions to compete for a spot in the state contest. At this year's competition, the Raider Band performed 4 songs, and they ended their performance in the coolest way possible with Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. Joining us tonight are 5 students representing the Raider Marching Band. Please join me in welcoming Thomas Almendra, he's percussion and band president, Hannah Greenall, clarinet and drum major, Thomas Wynn, clarinet and drum major, Jimmy Nichols, French horn and drum major, and Ethan Tuck, trombone and drum major. Cedar Ridge Raider Band Director is John Peterson. Associate Band Director is Rick Rodriguez. Assistant Band Directors are Greg Horner and Arminda Velasquez. Cedar Ridge Principal is Jay Kim. Congratulations.
If we can get you guys in the middle, and if you could look over here, please.
You chin like you like each other.
A little closer. On 3, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
More Round Rock pride showcased it at UIL in November. Round Rock Dragon Band gave a strong performance this year, finishing 13th place in the 6A division during the UIL State Marching Band Contest. Narrowly missing finals, these hardworking and talented students had a stellar season and were excited to once again participate in the state contest. Joining us tonight are 5 students representing the Dragon Marching Band. Please join me in welcoming drum majors Brianna Del Pazzo, Govind Joshi, Simran Shah, Anna Zverina, and Sawyer Clark. Round Rock Dragon Band directors are David Mobley, Kathy Benford, Brittany Graham, and Steve Roeder. Round Rock High School principal is Matt Groff. Congratulations.
Thank you. You guys will scoot towards the middle, please.
Oh, poor Nikki Gonzalez.
All Alrighty, if you'll look over here, please, on 3. 1, 2, and 3. One more time. 1, 2, and 3.
And one more. Look at the mom.
There you go. Alright, thank you.
From talented musician to gold-winning athletes, and they brought their bling with them, as you'll see. On November 1st, the Westwood High School tennis team made campus history by taking home the gold during the UIL 6A state championship competition. Westwood was ranked number 3 by the Texas Tennis Coaches Association and headed into the final as an underdog against defending champion and top-ranked Houston Memorial. By the end of the double session, the Warriors had flipped the script, taking a 5-2 lead. This is the first championship title the team has earned in Westwood's history. Their 19-0 season also included earning the area and district champion titles earlier this year. The team is led by their award-winning coach, Travis help me, guys. Dalrymple. Travis recently received state and region honors by being named the Texas Tennis Coaches Association 6A State Coach of the Year and Region 2 Coach of the Year. Coach, if you'll join us, please, we want to get a picture of you and the board and join Dr. Flores and the board. Congratulations.
If you look over here, please, on 3. 1, 2, and 3.
Can I get one?
Yes. One more.
And now, team, if you'll join your coach, I'm going to read your names as you come up, and we'll get your picture as well. Daniel Antov, Mahika Burmawal, Swapnil Dash, Anjali Devareddy, Ishan Danani, Captain Michelle Duan, Mohamed El-Shume, Zayed El-Shume, Sasha Francis, Kiana Graham, Captain Flora He, Captain Tanvi Janke, Claire Jansen, Captain Sophie Kardonik, Kinjal Khatri, Jessica Liu, Ani Margam, Arsham Moharjari, Gokul Narayanan, Sid Pandit, Arza Pluthner, Nathan Key, Utika Reina, Captain Gaurav Singh, Sanshit Sivaram, Captain Varun Samaruthu, Fernando Vasquez, Danielle Zing, and Westwood Principal is Mario Acosta. Congratulations, Westwood. We're going to have y'all, some of y'all take a knee in the front. Y'all know how to do a team photo. We'll figure it out. Or at least squinch down.
If we can have you guys please get as close as you can, especially this side over here.
Would this stand?
You should be able to see that. Okay, you guys get a little closer over here. Okay, guys, if you look over here, please. On 3, 1, 2, and 3. One more.
Now to recognize some of our amazing staff. Round Rock ISD's purchasing department has been recognized by the Texas Association of School Business Officials, or TASBO, as the recipient of the Award of Merit for Purchasing Operations for the 6th consecutive year. The TASBO Award of Merit for Purchasing Operations recognizes a school district's achievement in implementing best practices in the area of purchasing. Round Rock ISD's purchasing department does an outstanding job in providing the best resources possible for students and staff while ensuring the district remains compliant to purchasing laws and responsible to our taxpayers. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Jamie Spiegel, Director of Purchasing and Materials Management.
Alrighty, if you guys will look over here on 3, please. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Jamie's running out of wall space. Next, we have a special recognition that represents the outstanding work of our entire district staff. For the second consecutive year, Round Rock ISD has been named to the 9th Annual Advanced Placement District Honor Roll by the College Board for expanding opportunity and improving performance for AP students. Round Rock ISD is one of 373 school districts in the United States and Canada to earn the honor, which recognizes efforts and growth to the AP program. To be included on the honor roll, Round Rock ISD had to increase the number of students participating in advanced placement classes since 2016, while also improving or maintaining the percentage of students earning AP exam scores of 3 or higher. Since 2016, the total number of AP students in Round Rock ISD has increased 20%, from 3,722 to 4,483. The scores have also increased by 22%. Reaching these goals is part of the district's efforts to support and successfully develop students to be academically prepared for college-level work. We'd like to present the certificate received from the College Board to Dr. Flores at this time.
On 3, 1, 2, and 3.
Let the record show Dr. Flores did not want to be the only person in that picture, but last but certainly not least, the district, Round Rock ISD is joining school districts across Texas in honoring its Board of Trustees during the month of January as part of the School Board Recognition Month. Thank you for being public servants and education advocates who continuously support and drive innovation initiatives in Round Rock ISD. Our area learning communities, as you might have noticed when you came in tonight, have gathered some special gifts from students and staff that we hope will remind you of how much we appreciate the work you do on behalf of the district. Tonight, some of your most important constituents and members of the Student Advisory Board would like to say a few words. I'm going to introduce them all, and they're all going to come forward. Actually, you're going to introduce yourselves, right? We're going to do that. And representing all of our learning communities, and at the end, we'll have a photo with all of the students who are here with you tonight, and they have some additional gifts to present to you.
Alrighty. Howdy. My name is Blake Herrera. I am the junior class president here at Round Rock High School, and I'm also the president of the Round Rock ISD Student Advisory Board. And as a student in Round Rock ISD, I'd just like to thank y'all for all your time, energy, and efforts for making Round Rock ISD the greatest school district in our great state of Texas. So thank y'all very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Chantel Barnes. I am the student body president of Round Rock High School, and I'm here on behalf of the Round Rock High School learning community. First off, I want to thank you and acknowledge the fact that all of y'all spend your personal time and dedicate it to improving our district. And thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Key, and I am the McNeil Student Body President, also the Student Advisory Board Vice President. And on behalf of the McNeil Learning Community and all its feeder schools, I want to say thank you very much for your time in serving the Round Rock ISD School District. By investing your time and energy into us, you're investing in the future of America, and education is very important. So I want to thank you all very much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Serena Neem. I am a former student of Hopewell Middle School, and I'm a current student at Stony Point High School. And tonight I'm standing here on behalf of Stony Point High School and all the feeder schools of Stony Point. And I just want to thank you all for your dedication and all the time that you put into making our school as great as it is. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caden Brewer, and I'm here to introduce Ava from Berkman Elementary School, who is a kindergartner, and also Sophie from Forest Creek Elementary School, who is a 5th grader, and they have some books to give to y'all. If you want to, I don't. Sorry, my bad.
We're sorry, they all dedicated books to their libraries in your name, and you have a copy of them.
I'd also like to say thank you for going above and beyond your civic duty to make our community a better place and to perform the necessary functions of our school board. If everyone went to the extremes that y'all do to improve their own community, the world wouldn't only be a better place, but people would have a better understanding of the work necessary for everybody else to live their everyday lives. So thank you for leading by example and showing Cedar Ridge how responsible citizens act to improve the lives of those around them.
Hi, I'm Janice So from Westwood High School. I am the student body president, and here with me from Canyon Vista I have the Hewitt sisters.
Hi, I am Violet.
I'm Hallie.
And I'm Grace, and we would like to give you these hand-painted rocks from Canyon Vista Middle School in our art department. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. On behalf of the Westwood Learning Community, thank you to our school board members for stepping up as true leaders in your community, for sacrificing time out of your busy schedules, and for believing in the true value of education. We greatly appreciate your hard work to provide us students, and therefore our community, with a well-supported school district and brighter futures. Thank you.
So we also have T-shirts for you from all 5 learning communities. So that's what the students are delivering to you now.
Yeah, we'll get a photo if you guys will go over here. If you guys will stay, we're going to take a group photo.
Students, if you can stay, we'll take a picture.
There's a couple more. If you guys could scoot a little in, please. Thank you so much.
Like, scoot it down.
Okay, awesome. Everyone will look over here, please, on 3. 1, 2, and 3. More. Already, thank you.
Yes. You can take all your goodies back now. Thank you again, school board. You are truly planting the seeds of success, and our students appreciate it. Finally tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce the new principal of Robertson Elementary School. Before joining the Roadrunners, Robertson's new leader served as the principal of Harmony Science Academy in Austin. She earned a master's degree in educational leadership from the University of Texas at Tyler and a bachelor's in elementary education from the University of Arizona at Tucson. She's passionate about creating campus environments that establish pathways for success for all students and building strong relationships while focusing on student learning and growth. Please join me in welcoming Robertson Elementary School Principal Kyle Burrell.
President Chadwell, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Flores, thank you so much. I am honored to be joining the Round Rock ISD family as principal of Robertson Elementary School. I am excited to be starting this new journey with innovation and learning at the forefront. I believe that education is about choices. I believe that all of our students deserve to be prepared in such a way that they have those choices readily available to them when they graduate. I believe that is something that Round Rock ISD has worked to establish for all of their students, as evident in all the successes that we've shared in tonight. I could not be more excited to be a part of this community. So, thank you so much.
Those are staffers, right? So congratulations. All right, we will go on to, we've done board recognitions at agenda item G. We'll go on to agenda item H, public communications regarding items not on the agenda. So if everybody wants to head out on this point, I'll give you a moment. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead to our speakers. And first, we've got a couple of students, and I think we had a discussion that we would always bring our students forward first. So the two students together. Is it Milan Moore and Demi Browder? Is that right? Together?
Yes.
All right. And you guys want to speak as one? So.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Micah Moore.
And I'm Demi Browder.
And we are officers at the BSU here at Round Rock High School. And with MLK Jr.'s birthday coming up on Monday and, Black History Month coming up in February, we'd like to speak to y'all about Black Lives Matter at School National Week of Action, which is February 4th through the 8th.
The Black Lives Matter at School is a national committee, educators organizing for racial justice in education. And the Week of Action national demands are end zero tolerance, mandate Black history and ethnic studies, hire more Black teachers, and then fund counselors, not cops.
And we love to see all of y'all at our meetings. We hold them on Tuesday after school from 4:30 to 5:30 in the 300 pit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies for your name, but I just misread it there. But it's Micah, thank you. All right, we'll go on to our next speaker. It's not on the agenda, and that is Amanda Hario. Is that right? Harjo, is that right? Okay.
My name is Amanda Harjo. I have a student in the Achieve program at Terra Vista Elementary School. At least I did up until yesterday. I am here to bring to the board's attention the treatment that my son has received in this program at this school, and bring to your attention as well that my son is not the only one. I have spoken to a number of parents who have had students in the Terra Vista Achieve program that have removed their students from that school as a result of the treatment they are receiving. The teachers and the staff stand by and watch as my son is incessantly berated by other students. He is chastised and tormented relentlessly. And when my son finally loses his battle in attempting to maintain self-control, he is then punished at a disproportionate rate to the students who have actually done the antagonizing. When the cool-down room, they have a cool-down room that they use for students. They claim that they use this room only when the students have become violent and are a danger to themselves or others. My son will tell you himself that it is far more often that he is put in this room of isolation for no more egregious offense than refusing to stay in his seat. He is wrongfully accused of violence against other students when he has merely accidentally injured the other student. He is, when there is not a cool-down room available for them to put him in, they put him in the bathroom. And he is not the only student that has been put in the bathroom as an alternate cool-down room. When I told my son that I was taking him out of Terra Vista Elementary School, he broke down sobbing and wrapped his little arms around my neck and said, "Thank you. Thank you for getting me out of this school." Now, my son does have issues, obviously, or he wouldn't be in this program. But my son has made exponential progress over the course of the last 5 years. All of that progress has gone completely out the window since starting at Terra Vista. Not at home. At home, he is still my wonderful little boy who works so hard to improve himself, to improve his self-control, to improve his position in this world, and the way that he is perceived by others in this world, despite his challenges. I would like to know that something is going to be done about this. I would like to know that some resolution is going to be found for myself, for my son, and for the parents and students that have also suffered and continue to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harjo. Next up is, and I should have read this before, but 3 minutes for individual speakers, 5 minutes for groups, and Thank you for always being respectful during the presentation. Next up is Janet Wilson. Ms. Wilson here. Thank you. Speaking for yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't add my husband. This is Bill Wilson.
Okay.
So, we're Janet and Bill Wilson, and we have two sons that have been in Round Rock ISD for their entire education. We questioned their reading and spelling abilities throughout their years of education. They were each provided additional intervention prior to reading and writing STAR tests to promote passing scores to make the schools look good. Yet our inquiries for need for further testing were dismissed by the teachers and the school. Last year, our youngest son was diagnosed with dyslexia through private testing in 7th grade, and our oldest at the end of his 8th grade year. In January of 2018, the U.S. Department of Education released the findings of its investigation of Texas through the Office of Special Education Programs. This federal investigation found that Texas had been failing to provide free appropriate public education to students with disabilities protected under IDEA. This 14-page document mentions dyslexia 42 times as far as a failure for Texas to provide services. Our sons are both casualties of this failure, and now we're living with that. While they're now identified, and again, we are shocked at how hard we have to advocate for our children and how little Round Rock ISD personnel know about dyslexia, its protections under IDEA, or what to do to help these kids. Round Rock ISD needs more specific leadership in dyslexia within the district that doesn't currently exist. It needs to provide mandatory training on the evaluation and identification of dyslexia throughout the district. An estimated 20% of U.S. students are dyslexic. 20%, 1 in 5. The last statistic that I was able to get from TEA, they're working on an updated one for me, was that Round Rock ISD only identifies 4% of its students as dyslexic. This means that Round Rock ISD is failing 16% of its students across the board. 35% of students with dyslexia drop out of school. 80% of Texas inmates are illiterate. Of that 80%, 45% are dyslexic. Many students with dyslexia develop anxiety and depression. Our youngest son developed a bald spot from pulling his hair out while we were waiting for Round Rock ISD to start intervention for him for half of a year after we informed them of his dyslexia. Garland ISD in Texas begun this type of education within their district last year. In May of 2018, they identified 323 students with dyslexia, newly identified. In September of this year, that number was 1,453. Their projected number for May 2019 is 3,452. We can do better, Round Rock ISD. All we're asking you to do is teach our kids to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Wilson. All right, board members, we'll go on to, Mr. Moses, did you want to move the action items up? Is that our discussion?
Yes, based on our conversation last week, yeah, if we can move items K1 and 2 and L1 up, we would appreciate it.
Okay, board members, we talked about that. Is that all right with everybody? All right, so we'll go to agenda item K, the action items for consideration by consent. Mr. Moses.
Yeah. Mr. President, I move that we adopt action items K1 and K2 by consent.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for action items K1 and 2 for consideration by consent. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Go to agenda item L, action items. We want to have a discussion on that presentation. Is that the legislative priorities? We've read that. So, Ms. Caputo. Sorry, we should have given you a heads up on that. So we're going to move the order around slightly.
Thank you, President Chadwell. We presented a draft document at the December board meeting for your consideration, and then there was discussion about that at a workshop earlier this month. We made some changes based on that and then provided the draft document, again, for your feedback. We didn't receive additional feedback from the Board of Trustees, so tonight we're presenting that document for your consideration for adoption for our legislative priorities for the 86th legislative session. And we're here to answer any questions. I, along with Marty De Leon, who represents us at the Capitol.
Ms. Vessa.
So there's been some legislation filed already, and I was just wondering if you could talk to how that legislation aligns with our priorities or doesn't align with our priorities.
Good evening, President Chadwell, trustees, Dr. Flores. The news from the Capitol is encouraging so far. With regard to our priorities, with one of our biggest priorities is addressing the issue of recapture. In short, the House is putting in an additional $9 billion into the public education, while the Senate is putting in an additional $6 billion into public education. And these are very ambitious numbers, but the news is much better than most people thought going into this session. So recapture is a big number that's this district is facing and many other districts. But so far, initial legislation shows that the legislature is willing to cover the cost of up to $2 billion or a little bit more, which is going to make a big difference for this district and many others. So base budgets have been introduced on the House and on the Senate. We have not seen the actual school finance legislation being proposed that's enabling legislation that will allow the district to see the true impact. So it's still early, but the news is encouraging.
So does that money that we're talking about, the $9 billion in the House and the $6 billion in the Senate, include their desire to equalize the state and local shares?
So the details have not been laid out. These are budgets. These are figures that have been proposed in a budget. And usually the policy, the actual language, we'll see in legislation. But both chambers want to do something about recapture. Both chambers want to do something about property tax relief. Now the question is, what figure do we want to agree on, and how do we do it? There's lots of ways that they're thinking about. But by starting off at these high numbers, if we had to be prognosticators, I think if we fast forward, starting off with these high numbers suggests that there's going to be some agreement on a relatively significant number with regard to recapture and the basic allotment. So it's so early right now. The committees haven't been named. I think there's going to be a flurry of school finance legislation as soon as committees are named.
Mr. Moses.
Thank you. Thanks, Marty. I was wondering, I know we just talked about SB 3 is the bill right by Senator Nelson to do a pay raise for across the board, which is great to see, and it's great for our staff. Has there been any talk about what the funding mechanism is for that? Because while I think it's been great, my concern is that they always say we're going to fund this in perpetuity. Well, then they're seeing that didn't happen. So I didn't know if there's anything to make sure that continues down the road.
So the funding mechanism has not necessarily been identified. What has been identified is there is more revenue in general revenue. And in the Dallas Morning News, the Lieutenant Governor said, and you probably read the same article, that we will fund this $5,000 pay raise in perpetuity. But as many of us know, you cannot bind future legislatures. Yeah. So for now, we're looking at this biennium, the next 2 years, in which that $5,000 will cost the state, if it's just classroom teachers, it will cost the state $3.7 billion, which is a huge number. And you're right to question, how is the state going to sustain that number?
Well, and then I think about just that 5,000. Then let's just say we give an X percent salary bump. That's now that much more on top of what just got added. So now that is a local hit, and that is not something that is funded by the state.
Right. So the state is looking to do their part as far as that salary increase, but anything you do locally will be a cost that the district will have to address in their budget.
So the $5,000, is that over the biennium, over 2 years? And does the legislation detail, like, if it is over 2 years, like what that is, it like $2,500 a year? Or how?
So the legislation specifically says every full-time classroom teacher. If you read that strictly, we're only talking about teachers, not librarians, not counselors. And it says it's an annual $5,000 increase. So $5,000 times 350,000 teachers is roughly $1.75 billion for year one, and then another $1.75 billion for year two. And that's how you get the number $3.7 billion. So this is just the first draft.
Okay, Mr. Moses?
Yeah, and so now, Marty, this is where we need your expertise and all your years down there doing this. We adopt this. What do you need from us, or what's the most appropriate way for us to be involved in this and supporting you? Is it just you need to tell us what help you the most?
When this legislation reaches the committee level and members are looking for feedback, it's important that the district know its position. I mean, I think everybody would welcome that pay raise for all teachers. And at the same time, we have needs that are not being addressed with regard to recapture. We have a growing economically disadvantaged population. There are other things that they should be aware of. I think when that time comes, I would like to share it with the board and the superintendent when testimony is appropriate. We haven't gotten there yet. I mean, we've got to wait for the committees, and when we find who sits on the committee, that's when we can start negotiating on how to be impactful. But right now, it's everybody's taking a wait-and-see approach.
Would it be helpful, because I just think about those of us who have worked in and around the Capitol, or who have other, just through random college or growing up friends who now all of a sudden, oh, what do you know? They're a state representative. Just those type of things. I'm assuming it's helpful to share those with you. And then would it also be beneficial to you if you got some direction from this board about who to coordinate that through, especially if you're looking for testimony, to make sure we get the right person who you're seeking to go up there and do that?
Absolutely. I think if you have previous relationships with current lawmakers, that's important to follow up with those individuals and to let them know you'll come back at a later time when legislation is actually moving. We want to be thoughtful in our approach and again, be impactful when the time is right. And if the board could get together and decide and have a unified voice, and maybe one or two trustees that will be speaking on behalf of the district, that's definitely going to unify the message, and lawmakers will see that coordinated strategy and appreciate it.
And I'll add that my office has been reaching out to all our local representatives and senators. We've heard back from 4 of our state reps who are interested in meeting with Dr. Flores and with you all of you that are able to attend. So we'll be sharing those dates with you. Schedules are tricky for the legislators, but they are all very eager to meet and learn about Round Rock ISD impact and understand, what is happening here and what would benefit us at the Capitol. We also received a request from Representative Tallarico, who wants to come and actually visit several schools So we were very encouraged by that and his interest in Round Rock ISD. So we're setting that up as well, and we'll be in contact with you when we have that confirmed.
Okay, Ms. Gonzalez and then Ms. Vessa.
I think that we need to reflect, and I've worked in the Capitol and around the Capitol. This is my 10th session, so that's 20 years. And in the past, at least over a decade, this is the first time that public education has been a priority. It's come from both the House and the Senate. So I think moving forward, we need to be cautiously optimistic. But for both top leaders in the state, public education and school finance are going to be a priority. So we need to put that in our messaging as well. We need to be optimistic. We need to work with them, not against them, as we move forward. I'm just really overwhelmed that we are actually in this position where I feel like something's going to get done. It started while it's early. We haven't gotten committees yet. Let's just move forward and lock arms and make sure that we are providing the right message and we are providing the right material that our legislators need.
Okay, Ms. Vessa, again.
You know, this is my biggest issue and something I'm exceptionally passionate about. And you know that I want to do all I can. And I guess my question to you is, you see what I'm doing right now. Would you say that I need to curtail my activities in your eyes?
Well, I think advocacy is important. I think as far as your specific activities, I think there is when there is opportunities to speak in front of the press or chairman or give official comments on behalf of the board, there has to be a unified voice. That would be my recommendation to the board. I think when legislation starts to matriculate and starts to move at critical times, we are going to ask that you contact your lawmakers, contact your colleagues across the state to support, let's say it's Senate Bill 3. Senate Bill 3 has got a long way to go. So we want to, again, be thoughtful in our approach. But it's up to you, the board, to decide how that uniform voice, that one voice, should look like and how you do it. So I defer to you on who's going to be your spokesperson or spokespersons on this session.
One more question. So what role do you feel like our community can play in achieving these goals, these legislative priorities? What role can, like all the people who are here today in this room and watching or just reading about it afterwards, what role can they play?
You know, the role that's really changed since I've been doing this is my also 10th legislative session. What has been interesting of late is social media. Lawmakers keep up with social media, depending on the medium. But when there is a bill that the district gets behind or that is clearly positive in the best interest of the district, that's consistent with your priorities, social media is really going to be helpful going forward. But looking at Senate Bill 3 in a vacuum is, it's a good first step. And as Trustee Moses pointed out, are we going to be able to sustain this going forward? And I think that message will be to lawmakers from the community. Are you going to sustain this proposal going forward? If you are, then yes, we are in support of that piece of legislation.
So you wouldn't advise them to call their legislators or email their legislators or go to the Capitol and tell their legislators in person that they're in support of specific legislation. Instead, you'd rather them go on social media?
I think, again, advocacy takes in many forms. It can manifest itself in many forms. yes, they should call and they should email. But in my experience, I have seen where there is too many phone calls and too many emails. We've seen lawmakers, at least in my experience, and Ms. Gonzalez can also speak to it. Some advocacy can be too much, and it almost backfires. And this doesn't apply to Senate Bill 3, but I think, again, it has to be thoughtful, and broad support is good support, and lawmakers need to hear about this, but we hope there's more to this session than Senate Bill 3.
So if I'm understanding you correct, you're saying, like, say on PTA Rally Day, which is February 25th, their goal is 2,000. And you're saying if there was, say, 25,000, that might be too much. I mean, they'd be detrimental.
No, I think obviously those rally days are important, and you want to have a good impact. But the session is more than just one day. It's a continued process. Letting lawmakers know that you are supportive of these proposals is good, and it depends on the lawmaker. Some respond to that feedback. They like having that input on a daily basis. Others would like to see measured advocacy. It just depends on the lawmaker. I think we have new lawmakers representing Williamson County, and I think the more input that they receive is more input. They could definitely benefit from hearing from the PTA and trustees. So again, this session is every session is different. It depends on what is doable and what is the groundswell. There's a groundswell right now of support for public education. We've seen the introduced budgets. It's a good first start. But we hope there's meaningful solutions going forward.
I would just add, speaking of the groundswell, that there is power in numbers. And I think Rally Day is a day that legislators are anticipating the crowds to be there. And I think it makes a huge difference if it's 2,000 versus 25,000, because it's really in front of their face visual of the support. And going along with that power in numbers theme, I think hooking in with other organizations such as TASB and finding people with common goals and common priorities is important.
So I think TASB's is the next day, if I'm not mistaken. It's like right after that. But all public education, and I think Ms. Gonzalez said it, and we've all said it, it is so refreshing to see that is such a priority, public education. I don't know where they'll get the $5,000 in perpetuity, but I'm glad to see property tax discussion because it's all interwoven. I mean, we get our taxes to pay for the teachers from the valuation of the property. We set our tax rate based on that. I do want to just make a note here that these are our priorities. There are other districts in the area that have slightly different priorities, but I think some of them that are all common are safety, unfunded mandates, school choice. We all align on that. Austin, our neighbor just to the south, has the highest recapture state. They are the highest recapture district in the state. Half of their budget roughly goes to the state. Eanes ISD, Travis ISD, and we're all rising. So this is important that, on one hand we could say as a board we all speak a common voice, but one of the things that we all work together is we need to be kind of common with our neighbors and in our cohort districts. Not that we have to follow theirs, they have to follow ours, but what I've seen of our neighbors, there are some similarities, safety, unfunded mandates, school choice, or vouchers, opposed to school vouchers, things like that. But this is not non-binding resolution, is that right? It's not, we can't just go down to the Capitol and say, here, implement all of these, because they won't, for some reason, whatever, they won't take it. But this shows that what we are putting together is our priorities. So somebody sent an email and asked about gun safety and gun rules. I think that are guns, and that's an issue that's going to come across. I think everybody's discussing that on campus, and it goes to safety. We all want more safety. But at what cost is it? And so, anyway, with that, I think we've talked about this 3 times. I'm glad that it's come up. We've all had a chance to review it. So, at this point, we just make a motion to adopt it. Is there any other comments on it, or Mr. Moses?
Yes, I would just say also in part of the motion, I would like to see us designate certain spokespeople about these priorities with the media, with committees. I think as individuals, we reserve the right to go talk to individual legislators. I think because we have individual relationships, we have our priorities so we can go speak on. But when it comes to any type of mass communication going out, to Marty's point, it needs to be coordinated, it needs to be unified. There needs to be a protocol in place. So it's identifying who then goes and speaks for the district, who speaks for the board, and then also making sure that when that's happening, we're all in the loop. We all have that ability to provide potentially feedback if necessary to support one another in those goals. So I think that should be part of the motion as well.
Well, we can either put that in the motion or we can just adopt it as we go forward. I think, this is all happening. Everything is, as you said, social media is something that has really picked up steam in the last few years. And with social media, there's a lot of visibility that comes with it. It's all, and as far as we're speaking, there are some that and I'm glad to know that the legislators have social media as well. So I go and watch what they're saying and what they're focusing on. As you said, we have 2 new legislators here in Williamson County. I know them. I wouldn't say I know them well, but I'm glad that they are pro-education. So that's glad to see that we have all that.
President Chadwell, I would just add, too, is if you're thinking about that, just understanding that we've already started getting media requests. In this case, it was about Senator Nelson's bill. And as the session goes on, I am anticipating on a daily basis I'll be getting calls from reporters, and it will be more of what would the impact be in Round Rock ISD. So as you're wording that would be important to think about, what do you want me to feel, what would you like to see and review?
Okay. Ms. Vessa.
I would ask that we hold off on any addition to this resolution because ultimately what this resolution addition is going to do is designate who can and cannot speak, who can and cannot advocate, who can and cannot motivate our community to action. And I think that we need a further discussion of this because, obviously, this is what I ran on. This is what the voters who elected me to do. I didn't really run on anything else. I ran on this issue, and I won on this issue. So if we're going to make a decision tonight to say that Corey Vessa cannot speak, I think we need to work out a resolution that we can all, that I think we need to talk about this more.
Well, I think, one, I hadn't even said the language, so I think you might jump the gun just a little bit. And 2, I would say that, as I said a minute ago, we all have the right to go talk to individuals. We have the right to go on social media and post what we want to post. But when it comes time to mass communication and actually representing the district, we were elected to be a board. A body corporate means we speak as one voice. And when someone goes and does that without considering or talking to other people on the board, then that is outside the bounds of our roles of a trustee. And so it's important that we all play by actually our own operating procedures, which it's established as the board president as a spokesperson, and if that person's unavailable, then the board picks who that is. So all I'm saying is us following our own procedures and identifying who those people would be if President Chadwell is unavailable or if Dr. Flores is unavailable. I'm just going down that line.
Ms. Feller?
I just wanted to piggyback off of Mason that I like that the idea of developing a procedure or identifying it in advance so that if there is a last-minute request, we don't either have to pass on that request or have to have an emergency meeting to identify who that spokesperson would be. So I do see that one benefit of identifying in advance the designee, if it's not going to be the president, who it's going to be, and following in our procedures.
Well, I'll say from my experience on the board, we all bring our different perspectives, which is great, which is what we're supposed to do. We're all come from different views, and we want to talk. And I watched the little video that Dr. Flores you sent to us today, the TASB video, and one of the comments was the school board is a bridge between the schools, community and the schools, and we're supposed to advocate for our schools and communicate to our other elected officials and the community. So I think it's something that we can work on and we can optimize that. I think I'm glad that we have knowledgeable trustees who are willing, enthusiastic. So we have this is a great problem. I mean, in a way, we can make it better, but we have very knowledgeable trustees, and I'm grateful. Everybody on here has served in a capacity, either in a committee or has served on the board and been very involved. So we're all very knowledgeable. So, Ms. Feller.
Is this something that we would take a vote on who would or who would not like to set up who that person would be?
We're certainly not.
Can we vote on that?
We're not posted for that. I recommend
Okay.
what we do is we vote on this resolution as it is, and next week maybe, or in a workshop, we put together, how do we, now that we're getting more, this is getting, like you said, social media is generating some of this activity, some of your expertise. I don't want to ever squash you bringing forward your expertise, or you, Mr. Moses, anybody. But as long as we're not going against our basic legislative priorities here, and what's a fact, and certainly nothing against it, as long as we're not committing the board or the district to anything that, we will get rid of standardized testing. That's, we can't do that. Some of these things, if you ran on something and said, I want to get rid of standardized testing, that'd be great, but we just can't do it. I want enthusiasm. I want this, and I think it's great. I want the legislators to think of Round Rock first when they say, well, if I'm going to pick up the phone, I've got 5 minutes before I vote, or this, who am I going to call? Am I going to call Pflugerville, Leander, Austin, or Round Rock? I certainly want them to pick up the phone and call one of us, either on this board or Community Relations or Dr. Flores, and say, how will this bill affect Round Rock ISD? So, again, I think it's a great issue that we have some phenomenal expertise and background that we're bringing. So my recommendation is we just go ahead and vote on this as it is, as it's written. We bring this forward, and then we continue working on what's the best way to carry our message forward as a team, as a body corporate. And I think we can do that. So, Ms. Gonzalez.
Do you see us being able to do that next week?
I think we can do that. Yeah, we can add that to our agenda item. Sure.
Okay, because I do think the messaging and the packaging of the messaging and the board being one and speaking as one, whether it be to the media, to the legislators, is absolutely important for Round Rock going forward. It is our name, it is our brand, and we've all got to be included in that circle.
Okay. Mr. Math.
Yeah, just to piggyback on some of the comments, I think as trustees, we all have the right to be heard, certainly as individuals. But I would caution anyone on the dais that the news media and the print media, they sell newspapers, and they're judged on ratings, and they tend to put spins on stories that are sometimes unintended. So I think it's very possible that someone could speak with the media with the best of intentions and just have it spun in a way that it doesn't reflect the person's true goal and objective. So I would just caution anyone to be very careful in speaking with the media, and I would ask that none of us speak with the media between now and when we talk about this.
All right. Well, that's a good point. So anyway, with that, we have you want to make a motion on that? Unless there's any further discussion. I think this is very comprehensive legislative priorities. Some of these we've rolled every year. We kind of repeat them and get a little bit closer. Maybe this year we'll get the bulk of them and we'll all be in a better place. So, Mr. Moses.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the Round Rock ISD 2019 legislative priorities as presented.
Got a motion and a second to approve the legislative priorities as presented. Any further discussion?
Just that we discuss that other issue next week.
Sure. We can add that to our agenda or the future agenda items for the next week. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, raise your hand. All right. Motion carries. All right. Thank you. So now we go back to, is that right? Superintendent's report. Dr. Flores. Agenda item K. I'm sorry. Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, we do have 3 reports tonight, beginning with the Bond Oversight Construction Report. Terry Wooster will lead us in that discussion, and then we'll have the Cedar Ridge Learning Community update, and we'll close out with instructional technology. But at this time, Mr. Wooster, and I believe he'll have identification of other presenters. So without further ado, Mr. Wooster.
Thank you, Dr. Flores.
President Chadwell, trustee members, and Dr. Flores. It's a privilege always to be able to come in and speak on behalf of the construction work and the ongoing activities from the operations department. And a quick mention is that last Thursday night there was a citizen bond oversight committee, and that committee is active, and that committee was well attended that night. And so I would mention that committee does not have a chair at this point. Mr. Rick McElrath has served his term, and so there is a chair nominee, and that is Mr. Ryan Baker, and it is appropriate to either suggest another nominee and or assign him that duties. And so we have no chair to present tonight, so I took the opportunity to invite 3 individuals who are directly related to McNeil High School in the work of the construction, and that is the architect of record, the architectural firm of Perkins Will, and principal in charge, Angela Whitaker Williams, a registered architect, is with us, as well as her colleague, project architect Chris Kunkel, registered architect, as well as the builder of record from Cadence McShane Construction, the executive partner, Srinath Kasturi. And so they will be making the presentation based on the fact that they are active team members within the construction. And so please, if you will, make your way to the microphone. There you go, construction update.
Hello, thank you, Terry, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, the board. We really appreciate being able to come here and speak to you about McNeil. There's some exciting things happening over there. We're getting very close to opening our special education wing that will be coming on board very soon. And wanted to give you an update of what's going on. Can you go to the next slide? That wing is in bid package 5, which is ongoing right now, and we also have, as you can see on the screen, bid package 6, some of the fine arts coming out of the ground, taking form. You can begin to see the building coming in place. We are working hard on the schedule of this project, and I will let the construction manager talk about the construction schedule as we move through this. But we're here to answer questions and let you know, give you an update so that we can be more transparent in our communications of what's happening in construction. And I'll let Sri talk about schedule.
Yep. As far as schedule, thank you for the invitation. As far as the schedule on McNeil, as you can tell there by the slide, we've had a significant amount of delays caused due to a variety of issues. We've encountered 21 voids. I think that's not a secret here to this board. Some of them more than a void. It's a cave. And when such a thing happens, the environmentalists of the city of Austin marks a 50-foot radius. And you draw a circle, and you cannot. It's a no construction zone where no equipment, no material, not even people essentially can walk in. So it's like these circles that are drawn, and we've had 21 of those, unfortunately, on this site. And each one of those goes through a significant, like a laborious process where you notify the city, the engineer comes in, there's a mitigation plan. The mitigation plan has to be approved by the city. There's TCEQ involvement. They say it's a go. We get the pricing submitted, approved, and then the work gets executed. Once it's executed to the city's satisfaction, you close the void and move on. That 50-foot radius, the circle, goes away, and you can go do construction. So we've hit 21 of those at different times, different unfortunate times, despite all the measures and the due diligence. So that has resulted, that along with the rain, and everybody here knows, we probably had the wettest, Central Texas has had the wettest October, November timeframe in a long time. And what happens, especially on this site, this is all rock underneath. So if you can imagine some of these portions of the site, when you have rain, the topsoil gets so saturated that if you You get rain, and the next 5 days, it takes wind and sunshine to dry it out. Because if you run equipment on something that is squishy and mushy, you're going to go do more damage than good because you can't work on that portion of the site. That coupled with this fall, we've had several days where the temperature is not 40 degrees and rising. For those that know construction, when you don't have 40 degrees and rising temperature, you cannot mix mortar, and hence you cannot finish masonry. So despite all these challenges, you look at a linear path, and we've had 221 days, and that's an asterisk because this is based on the finding of the 21st void. But it's all been mitigated now. That's the good news. We've been able to bring back, so if you do a cumulative analysis, that's 8 months of a delay progression. And it's not all linear, so I just want to give you context. We've been able to wipe out almost 5 of those and bring it back. So our completion, anticipated completion of the SPED was somewhere in the November timeframe, and we're today, happy to say, we're almost there. We're substantially complete with the work, waiting on a fire marshal approval. We've been trying to track the person down. He's been in training for the last 2 weeks, so that's been a challenge to get him out there to do the one final sign-off to get a TCO for the occupancy side. As you can tell from some of the pictures, especially one at the bottom, the outside, obviously, not sure when that was shot, but it's pretty recent. We're at that stage of getting that buttoned up. I don't know if you want to add.
Just to kind of
Push your button there.
just to talk about kind of the general of how do you execute a contract and how do you manage what's going on this site. The district does have a contract with the construction manager at risk. The contract does have a delivery date in it, but it also has specific terms in it that says should you hit something that is beyond the contractor's control, such as a rain delay or an environmental delay, that does contractually extend their schedule. And Cadence McShane has worked really hard to try to recover what is, 221 days. That's a lot to recover. And one of the things that we've talked about in terms of as we begin to get ready for students to occupy this wing, many of the students who will occupy this wing have severe learning differences, and that moving them quickly is actually hard on them. And so one of the things we've been working with the campus and with the construction management group is how do we do a soft move-in so the students can preview things and they can gradually get used to their space so that they don't have the shock of the relocation, which is actually not in their educational benefit. So we're actually collaborating to try to work through some of those issues as we are also working through the issues with the fire marshal and with the city and trying to mitigate this 221 days of delay.
Right. And Board of Trustees, from this point, is that the good news is that we look at GMP 6 and that it is we estimate approximately 50% complete, and we look forward to downhill slide. We've gotten past a lot of site work and a lot of issues, and so we bring to you good news tonight. We're looking forward to getting back into a completion. So with that, are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Mr. Moses and then Ms. Weir.
I'll let Ms. Weir go first. No, go ahead. Well, no, it really isn't necessarily attached to this, and I was just curious. I don't know if we can do it here, if it needs to be something else, but we know back in November we did those reimbursement resolutions for our projects that are coming online. Let's get an update on that and where we're at as it falls under construction.
Yes, be happy to do that. Okay. And actually, well, let me just give you an insight to what some of the work behind the scenes is. That with the reimbursement resolution, that was designed to be able to accommodate fees for professionals. And so there has been activity throughout the course of the purchasing department to advertise, solicit requests for proposals, and there are evaluations that have been ongoing, and interviews are being scheduled so that we can define a professional to begin working on different projects.
Yeah, just the next time to get an update on that would be great.
Yes.
Ms. Weir.
Well, I'm just wondering when we're going to be able to get into the parking lot in front.
Get in, meaning
Like
can you
the
park
staff
there?
can- yeah, when it's gonna be usable.
It's the factor of TCO. When the fire marshal, and it's normal for any building, until the fire marshal says it is good to occupy, which is the tag that he gives you once he checks all the life safety, which is all in place. He just has to come in, check all the striping, as you can see, the fire lanes are in place. Once he says it is good in his eyes, that's when you can occupy.
But one more thing I'm going to clarify there. Because bid package 6 is still under construction, part of that parking lot will be construction laydown space until that part of the building is further built. There is no other place to lay down large supplies on McNeil's side. You know how tight and compressed everything is. No one wants us putting stuff on the baseball field. So, so through bid package 6's completion, about half of that parking lot will be used by the contractor until such time that they don't need the laydown, and then they'll surrender it to you.
And there's a complete flow of traffic and a delineation of construction that has been presented previously. I don't know if it's been shared with the board, but
No,
it has been.
yeah. Well, it has with at least a couple of us that are from McNeil.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good with that.
So, and I want to brief you on one other thing regarding that front parking lot, just in full transparency. When this was permitted, there was no bid package 5 and bid package 6. It was one permit. So we, in our completion of 5, we have to negotiate with the city them letting us release things. Normally you would permit phased things separately because it was permitted so far ahead of when the decision to split bid package 5 and 6 into 2. That's something else we'll be negotiating as we're getting the C of O through.
So that's what the City of Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So they have to say, this pond is for this addition. This pond is complete. You know, that area is complete, and so that's some of the things that we have to go through, and get through all of those legal transactions since it's not a split permit.
So, okay, I mean, I don't know how Trustee Gonzalez feels, but I guess I'm just kind of curious. I mean, so you said 2 weeks for the fire marshal, so we didn't actually go to, since you've been waiting 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So we weren't ready to even ask the fire marshal till January to come in and do a bid? I mean, to come in and do
The fire marshal's been on site several
Right.
times during the construction process. There are key intervals that the fire marshal reviews and looks at fire alarm systems and egress lights. There's a whole series of things they look at. Obviously, the site work is a critical issue also for the fire marshal because that fire lane is how the fire truck gets safety to the school. And we have the fire riser room that will ultimately sprinkle the whole building in this piece of the addition. So that's also a critical piece to them. So yes, there's been multiple times the fire marshal was out. He was out in December and
Right.
and several other intervals. But until he is willing to schedule his final walk and the contractor has made the request for him to attend, and until the city releases the site, then that's when we get to move forward on releasing.
Do you have any, I mean,
It's been a daily thing, and with him being in training, you know, I'll be upfront. You don't want to make a person so mad that he then comes and shows it.
we don't want him to be mad.
Yes, and
we want him out there.
We got to be, you know, it's
And so
almost
far,
like
he's
begging.
been very reasonable working with us, and in his reviews of things have been very complimentary of the team and of the construction that's out there. It's just a matter of him getting on his schedule to show up and go and check off the things he needs to check.
And then, so once he does that, then the City of Austin, is it much longer after that, or is
So-
that all they need?
So technically, when he comes in, so just to give you some context, the fire alarm system ties into the existing building. So he will go it's an after-hour inspection because the school's in session. They'll test random things within the school to see if the alarm triggered something else in this, because that's what they want. They want to see all of that in function. And once he's satisfied that everything's working, which we've done the pre-test ourselves, it's been done, like on our end, but he has to watch it. He doesn't go by anybody's word. So once he's satisfied, he gives you a green tag that says, good to occupy. Once he does that, you really can occupy. But, like Angela said, the parking lot, the things that you asked earlier, we have to dot those I's and cross those T's with the City of Austin.
I mean,
yes,
it's the City of Austin.
Yeah.
It's the City of Austin. It is the city of Austin, and I do want you to be aware that only half that parking lot will surrender when the city allows us to surrender. That's just for the workflow of the project. And once they get further enough along, they don't need that laydown space. They'll clean up the lot and turn it over and let people park there. And I think that the construction management department has been talking to the transportation department because this will be a substantial traffic flow change to that campus, and working through strategies for that and how the bus loop would work and all those sort of things. So there's a lot of logistics that go on before you pull that trigger so that everyone's safe moving through it.
Yeah, we just, as parents, we got an email, that it might happen when we came back in January, and then.
And then it rained for all of December, so we ended up with some more delays. Sorry. Can't control the sky. Any other questions?
Ms. Feller?
Actually, for Terry, this is probably at least the second time I've heard you say that we don't have a chairman for the Bond Oversight Committee.
Yes.
Is this a specific action that the board needs to take and put it on a future agenda to make sure that there is someone in that role?
Yes.
Can we add that to our next agenda?
May I clarify?
Yeah, tell me what the process is on that, please.
According to the charter, basically the board president actually appoints the chairperson, but the way it's supposed to work is he should entertain nominations from any board member. So theoretically, you could have 7 different individuals. Then the committee as a whole can also recommend from a member from within their ranks, which is Mr. Baker. So after the any nominations, then it's the board president that would appoint that individual.
So, Mr. Chapel, can you tell me how that process will work for us?
Yeah, this is.
Sorry, I'm pulling the newbie card.
That's all right.
I don't know how this works.
Fine. That's good. It's been a while. I think it's a 2-year cycle. Is that right? The chair. So, and then you guys meet twice a semester, 4 times a year.
4 times a year.
4 times a year. So it's not a frequently occurring committee, but you've had a majority attendance. That's right, a quorum or whatever. It's a non-binding group. It's more for review. They come back some with recommendations, but more the group is to come to the board and recommend or make an update, and they're doing exactly what we just heard about McNeil. They've got this much money, this many $1 million. They're halfway through. They've got this done, and so they do it on a regular basis. And we want outside people who are experts in construction and who have visibility onto the campuses. How many members are there supposed to be? 15 or something? Or?
Typically, there has been as many as 15, but on an average, there's been approximately eight individuals attending.
But I think it seemed like I remember there were a couple of appointees, and then this is the first time in a while that I remember there's been a vacancy. We had a problem a few years ago where people were not showing up on a regular basis. And again, it's not like they couldn't conduct business, but anyway, I'll work on that. I know you said that before with the holidays. I just forgot about it. But if you have somebody, otherwise, Mr. Baker, if that's their recommendation, I'm certainly willing to entertain that. If he's been in attendance on a regular basis and is participating regularly, that's a big factor for me.
President Chandwell, I believe that he is most qualified being a member of the construction industry.
So and if I can do it this week, tomorrow, then we'll get it done. If you have.
So it doesn't have to be an action taken at a board meeting.
No.
Okay.
That's right.
Thanks. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll just make one real quick. Thank you for the input, and thank you for being here. I think this is the first time I've seen you here. So I remember, and you're saying 21 voids. Each one was certain days. I just thought some of the voids were basketball size, and they were quick. Found them, filled them in. There was a law that said if anything within 3 cubic feet or something, boom, you went forward.
Yes and no. They still you can't just the mitigation plan still has to be approved by the City of Austin. There may be sandbags involved, there may be cement involved or concrete involved. Whatever that procedure is, if you found something, you can't just do it by yourself. You still have to get the authorities to approve it. It's a faster process if it's a smaller void. Some of the bigger ones, they come out, and when you hit one, you got to stop everything and call them, and then you're kind of at their mercy for them to come and say, yeah, this is small enough. Submit the same mitigation plan. Unfortunately, this happened. Submit the same one you did for Void 4, and we'll consider that, and you can go on. So they've made those concessions, but some of them, they've said, stop, we got to ask other people. So that's
just a quick add, quick summary of the typical process. If a void is discovered, regardless of the size, the environmental consultant that the district has on staff, or under contract rather, is brought out to the site. He has to go into the cave. They have to do testing for ground source water, as well as any sort of critters, animals, that sort of thing that may be living in the void. They have to do their own report that includes kind of sizing the void, locating it on the site. Once that's done, it's put into our civil engineer, who then puts together that mitigation plan that he submits to the city. The city process for review and approval of that void is then kind of what takes the majority of that timeline process. I'll then add that if another void is discovered while that void is in process, they won't release the first void until the second void is also fully processed. So it kind of bundles those two together and then further kind of extends that whole timeline. So it really is, as Sri said, quite a laborious process.
Yeah, there's no clear answer. Like you said, if you discovered one and one's in mitigation, and you, unfortunately, as you're going down the 50-foot radius, you're doing the 60th linear feet from that void, and you hit one, they won't let this one until you have a full mitigation plan. So you might be ready to almost get a release from them. They'll hold it till you provide a plan for this. So it's a complex process, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you showed up. I'm glad you're here. McNeil's been a long time coming, so hopefully we'll see it. Looking forward to going out there and seeing the new wings and new parking, all of that. I'm sure everybody out there is as well.
We're looking forward to having a ribbon cutting with you.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Any other questions on that? Otherwise, Dr. Flores, can we take a quick break? You've got two more, and these are going to be substantial. Is that all right with everybody? Take a quick break? Okay. 8:52. Is that 5 minutes? We go quick? All right. All right, let's go ahead and get restarted here. All right, let's go ahead and get restarted. It's 9:06, and we will go to agenda item, back to Superintendent's report. Dr. Flores.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We do and are ready for the Cedar Ridge Learning Communities update. The Cedar Ridge principals are there. Their phones are off, and they're ready to go. So without further ado, Dr. Presley, would you like to introduce our speakers?
Yeah, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, members of the board. Tonight is the third in our series of our 5 learning community updates, and tonight we bring the amazing community of Cedar Ridge to you. Dr. Nancy Guerrero will be presenting and giving you the highlights of what's going on in Cedar Ridge this year. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Guerrero.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, and board members. I am honored to be here this evening to highlight the amazing work happening in the Cedar Ridge learning community. Our team, our family, is led by a collective team of strength, commitment, service, and passion for the students, families, and community we serve. I am always amazed at the great work of each of our team members, our principals, gathered around the table reading, because we do promote literacy. In that picture, you'll notice. And if I may, just thank them for joining me tonight for this presentation. Our team, Cedar Ridge Learning Community, stand up, guys. Along with one of our assistant principals, Kathleen from Berkman. Thank you, Kathleen. Our team is not complete without the continuous instructional support of our instructional coaches, led by our Director of Academics, Marianne Maxwell, my partner in our service. Thank you, Marianne. Although I can spend hours highlighting the details of the many services, programs, practices students and staff engage in daily, I will focus on a few powerful practices within our work, share our journey, and celebrate great accomplishments guided by our Round Rock ISD leadership principles. As we continue to grow as a learning community of learners, leaders, and seekers of continuous improvement, we commit to a focus on the vision of our district graduate profile, literacy, the whole child, and promoting opportunity and community for all those we serve. We are committed to include all. Allow me to begin with our exploration and monitoring of first and third grade reading. Why do we look at first and third grade? Early first grade marks the point when students have the opportunity to receive instruction during kinder, especially those in low-income households who are far less likely to attend high-quality pre-K programs, so that all students have some level of foundational reading understanding by the end. Identification of reading difficulty in first grade then is a crucial timing for providing reading interventions that close the gap. By the end of third grade, state standards and assessments shift the focus from learning to read to reading to learn. So students need to have acquired reading proficiency in order to be successful in fourth grade reading comprehension and beyond. Ultimately, the national dropout rate is 6.1%, but those rates are up to 9.7% for low-income students. All this comes from the research that I shared with you in the presentation. At our 4 highest economically disadvantaged schools that I also want to note have the highest English language learners, the number of incoming first graders below level has decreased from an average of 14% last year to an average of 14% in last year to this year, ranging from 8% to 24% difference. The overall learning community decrease is an average of 11%. So we can share with you that most of our at-risk schools are improving at the fastest rate. To check third grade progress toward end-of-year proficiency, last year was a 5% decrease below level readers at the beginning of the year. And this year, we have from beginning of the year to mid-year with our BAS scores. And this year, we have a 10% decrease from beginning of year to middle of the year. To put it in perspective, 667 students in third grade, that's about 35 more students than last year, who will now be 4 times less likely to drop out, most of them coming from our most at-risk schools. Our team is consistently focused on closing the gap. We recognize the key to closing the gap is early intervention. We would like to, at this time, acknowledge you, the board, for the commitment and opportunity you provided by approving pre-K at all of our title schools across the district. 4 are within the Cedar Ridge learning community. As research has defined, reading readiness skills, such as early reading skills taught in pre-K, are more highly correlated to future reading achievement than any other opportunity gap factor. Our response. We are fortunate to have Mary Ann, our academic director, working closely with our district director of Title I and pre-K and the implementation plan for our district. In addition, I am proud to share that all programs in our district are thriving and highlight the work specifically at Gaddis Elementary for serving as a model and the training site for programming across the district. These are a few parts of the district plan. There are more steps that campuses and instructional coaches are involved in. The idea is to use the funding now to build long-term capacity with early childhood development by growing our instructional coaches in this area. We have already received very positive feedback from our coaches thus far about the trainings and the coaching. As we continue to delve through our response, professional learning communities, academic collaborative teams are hard at work across the learning community at each campus and grade level. This is the core of how we facilitate and monitor our work. Seeing results of collaboration and focus on PLCs at Cedar Ridge High School and working on the instructional practices that are successful at all grade levels and founded in successful schools models, we are reaping benefits, closing gaps with increases in not only approaching in the meets and masters data. So we pulled from our DCAs the tested areas and saw the increase from last year to this year, most recently in the meets and masters categories, showing that we have made gains and that the gains are even larger with our economically disadvantaged population with many of these tested areas. For example, history for meets is at 4% and mastered at 9%. Algebra, we're very proud of, has gone up to 11% and 9%. Biology with our EcoDisc is about the same, 2% and 3%. And English language arts is 7% and 8%. Our learning leaders are engaged in great instructional practices that focus on academic growth. We are also committed to meeting the needs of the whole child through our practices that meet the socio-emotional needs of our students. All campuses are engaged at some level of restorative practice, with 3 at school-wide implementation. Partnerships are thriving to grow teachers as facilitators and students' soft skills for communication, community, and conflict resolution. I will highlight some of our specific programs during celebrations. Several of our campuses have tailored programs to grow self-confidence, set goals, and attain them. For example, C.D. Folks initiated Collection of Brothers, a males group that meets regularly, promotes confidence, grows communication skills, and actually facilitated a learning walk for all of the principals in our learning community just this week. Similarly, the Phoenix Rising Men's Group is active at Success High School. Led by the mentorship of Coach Rodney Page, our students have an opportunity at life through coaching that inspires them to dream, set goals, and have tools necessary to navigate life. As a learning community, we do monitor and seek to determine if our work is having an impact on our school communities. One highlight is the trends we are noting with discipline data. The chart offers data of overall referrals or infractions for each school. Though we reorganized by learning communities last year, we are tracking the overall numbers of referrals and noting that we are trending downward, 2,000 referrals per year. I will note the 3 numbers I have in bold. These are campuses with school-wide implementation of restorative practices, and 2 of those campuses have a 4-house model. The campuses noted have significantly lower numbers of students receiving referrals. Although the 2019 data includes only data to date, we can still project that we will see another 2,000 referral reduction by the end of the school year. I believe it's going to be greater. We invest in growth to ensure continuous growth. Some of our learning comes from our partnership with Holdsworth and the leadership of our first CLP campus leader, Cheryl Hester, bringing her learning back to her campus and principal team. By Round Rock ISD design, we have embedded opportunity for learning growth from our instructional coaches on site, working with our teachers and administration. The team is continuously learning and implementing that learning. Some of our key learnings come from our book studies focused on research-validated instructional practices, meeting diverse needs, and meaningful feedback. In addition, we do contract with some gurus in the field to bring common language, practices, effective schools models, and opportunity for our team. We have developed campus systems with common practices and language that further support and allow us the ability to groom trainers, coaches, and offer models within our community. The ability to collaborate across campuses is incredible, and our coaches are thriving as they support common effective practices. Though we're committed to include all and invest in growth, that growth allows us to inspire action, and our action is oriented for all students. Each campus leader has strengths and unique campus needs they support daily. The power of this team is their collective strength. As we grow together, we have identified key strengths that foster our work, our common systems and practices, and leaders that help the entire team grow. We are always learning from one another through our book studies, professional development sessions, and collaborative walks and sessions with our team and with our leadership across the district. Our excitement lies with the strength within each team member and the trainer of trainer model we have created. For example, and noted here, restorative practices led by Dr. Travis Mutcher. I have to highlight that our recently elected state representative, James Tallarico, I know he just spoke with us at the PTA luncheon, has reached out. His team has reached out to Travis and the team at Ridgeview, and they will be coming specifically to investigate the practices of restorative practice and his wish to bring it to the legislature. So we're incredibly excited. PLCs and AIA, our newly named Arts Principal of the Year, Kathy Cawthorn, has hosted visits from districts across the state and even California on her campus, all about systems, PLCs at work, and of course the integration of arts. Just this week we had Fort Worth with us all day on Tuesday. The list goes on because everyone brings to the table a strength. Holsworth in leadership, we have all grown so much from all that Cheryl and her team have learned. I shared with you earlier that early childhood is a model at Gaddis with Jennifer's leadership and partnership with our district leaders. Engagement by design is vetted in Hattie's work, and Denise Sharp, Jennifer Lucas, and Cheryl Hester are taking the lead and implementing on their campuses. Ron Clark and Four Houses come visit us at Callison and at CD Folks. The students are remarkable, and it's because of these ladies' leadership. Leader in Me and that leadership model with Covey's research. Sue is our expert. Rachel's challenge, student leadership and voice. G.A. Kim has been an added touch and definitely knows how to incorporate and build leadership and voice for our students. Future readiness, prevention, and alternative programming, and of course dropout prevention is housed, and we are always growing by the leadership of Thomasine Stewart. And commitment to grow our leader rank through a design team concept made up of assistant principals and instructional coaches in our learning community, something that we developed this year. The design teams are focused on instruction and behavior. These teams have identified a problem of practice, explored the whys or causal factors, and exploring research to design systems and practices to embed in our schools through campus PD along with learning community PD and going to share with our entire district, our one family. We're very excited. Our APs and instructional coaches are vested in action for all students and growing as leaders themselves, so we're really excited. I shared the highlights can be ongoing. Some of those highlights include the work around social-emotional learning across our learning community, creating well-rounded students that have access to mindfulness lessons that help them take care of their needs, develop leaders, grow as community members, and conflict resolution. Reach every learner, including adults that have not received their high school completion due to tax success. And so I'm talking now about adults in our community that are in their early 30s. We now have an action plan and have created hope for more life opportunities. We've embedded enrichment opportunities at most of our schools, and the list could go on. So, here is a little more around the arts and how they are thriving in the Cedar Ridge learning community through arts integration, competitive programs that have attained great accolades. We celebrated our band earlier this evening. We invite you to join us for upcoming musicals, concerts, and showcases. Our leaders and teams have attained great success. Voight is a national showcase school for capturing kids' hearts, and we have 3 nominations this year, so stay tuned. We're excited those visits are coming. Blackland Prairie Elementary is a leader in as a lighthouse school. 4 of our campuses have attained at least one level of certification from Marzano for systems and practices in high reliability schools, and I do want to highlight that Berkman has attained all 3 levels. As the new calendar year is underway, many of us have presented the challenge of one word. Our schools did the same. Each had words that echo who we are and speak to the great work in our learning community. Collectively, we are strong and share. We are a family of passionate advocates, intentional about building relationships, continuously collaborating to create believers in all learners of our community, our family. We are Cedar Ridge Learning Community, and I welcome any questions at this time.
Ms. Vissa.
So it was a wonderful presentation, and I've had a chance to visit many of the schools and the Cedar Ridge Learning Community and just have been so impressed by all the things that I see there and so many great things happening.
Thank you.
I went ahead and looked at all of your TEA reports, and something just came to my attention. So our schools that have a low percentage of economically disadvantaged students rank very high, very high. They're doing great, especially the elementaries, A-rated schools. But the higher economically disadvantaged schools are struggling. I mean, we mainly C, and then we have 1 D-rated school. And so how are we addressing that within the Cedar Ridge Learning Community so that we can make sure that all of our schools, regardless of the proportion of economic disadvantaged students, are performing at the highest levels?
Well, and I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. A piece of why we have really been committed to our goal around academic achievement, but also I believe goal 4 about the whole child is that many of our students at our high at-risk campuses come with many deficits. So we have to build that level of trust, but we have specialists that wrap around. We're consistently and continuously gathering data while also providing them access to those enrichment pieces. So our interventionists are involved in creating individualized plans for our students. Our instructional coaches are tooling our teachers. Something that I have noticed in the year and a half in this role and as a learning community, and why we're so focused on basically that trainer of trainer model, like growing our own, because there is so much great strength and ability within our team, is that we want to ensure that we are meeting every student's needs. And so those instructional coaches are pushing in, but specifically, we've never had the strength that our PLCs now have. So instead of a first grade teacher kind of thinking, okay, this is what I have to deliver, and kind of then doing it on her own, that team is coming together, and we have really pushed in service to those younger grade levels to really grow and set that long-term goal, along with what we're doing at those tested areas, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We are challenged with the mobility rate. We have most of our at-risk campuses average 20 to 24% mobility. And the reality is that many times, in having served one of these campuses for 11 years as principal, I would see students come in and out. So we can, I tell my staff all the time, and my principals and I know, we control when students are here. So when we delve into causal factors, we do look at what we control and why we're trying to do things a little differently. Now, outside of that, if they were here with us at snapshot date in October, and they come back to us in early April, and they're going to test with us, I can assure you we are going to work hard, but those kind of create some challenges. So what we've really started to do is also not just focus on this approaching meets or masters for our kids that are already behind the start line. We want to ensure that they have growth. So we're monitoring those pieces too, and that's why I mentioned the PLC, because now that first grade teacher, instead of working alone, has 3 great minds, and we are developing the best possible plan. And guess what? If I am that first grade teacher and I didn't deliver the instruction this child needed, Dr. Presley, that's my partner. He comes in and we're going to do whatever it takes for students. So I'm very optimistic that we're going to see lots of growth and continue to see lots of growth. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for mentioning about the mobility rate. I actually went today I'm a reader at Forest North in the Education Connection program, and I read with 2 students 15 minutes each. And one of my students just happened to mention that she had moved, that she was at a different school every single year of her educational background. And of the 2 readers that I have, she's definitely the furthest behind. And the little boy that's with me, he actually was at Forest North, left, went to another school in the district, and came back. So he also had moves, but he's actually doing a lot better. But I can see how changing schools all the time really does impact their ability to excel within, in any way. It's just a lot of change.
We're not only receiving those gaps, it goes back to Maslow and those basic needs having to be filled. And so though collaboratively we are strong and we lean on each other, our collaborative network is so much bigger because we are always sharing students with our neighboring districts, with schools that very much mirror the demographics of those campuses that you highlighted, the 4 title campuses at elementary, the 1 at middle school.
Okay, Ms. Feller.
Thank you very much for your presentation. As you know, Cedar Ridge Learning Community is very near and dear to my heart. I have 3 children that are in this learning community, and in fact, 3 years ago when my husband and I were considering moving, I told him we were moving a half a mile down the road because we were staying in this feeder pattern. So I obviously wholeheartedly support your schools and your administrators, your teachers. They're doing a fabulous job. I wanted to highlight on slides 7 and 10 just the gains that you have made, and just say congratulations. And especially, I would love to see the economically disadvantaged numbers that you quoted. If you could just put that in an email or something, just so that I could look at because those sounded like they were really great, but they were
absolutely. Yes, I apologize. I work really hard not to read slides to you, but to Phil. So, Marianne, can we make a note and we can get that definitely? I can share it with Patty and maybe get it to the board.
And then the second thing was on slide 12 on the discipline trends.
Yes.
First of all, kudos to the dramatic decrease at CD Folks. I mean, it really, really stands out that even if it doubled from this point, would be 40% less than what it was last year. So a big kudos on that. That's just really stood out at me. And I don't want to end on a negative note, but the one thing that did stand out to me is the Success High School.
Yes, ma'am.
Was a lot higher than already at the halfway point. Is there some information behind that as to why their number is higher?
Yes, ma'am. So frequently, and of course, I'm always going to be completely transparent, work to answer any questions. So I wanted to provide information on all of our schools. So Success and Thomasine, along with her team, are working on that piece, but they've implemented a great number of very clear expectations, and those numbers, we went back and looked because that wasn't the norm there. One of the expectations was very specific to cell phone use, and I heard earlier the whole reality of social media and pieces, but it has become such a disruption in instruction and for safety measures. So they have really honed in, and we have already kind of revisited what we can do, because we know what I shared with you are hard fact numbers that are reported in PEIMS. Now, the other piece is that 402 doesn't mean 402 students. So we have a small number of students that get a good number of referrals sometimes. And the other piece is when we talk about documentation and trying to capture what is happening with a child, sometimes those documents, they're more formal and they're documenting what's happening. But Thomasine and her team are already on that piece because they got to see very clearly after one semester that the implementation of those expectations shifted things. It's still an amazing campus with so many great things happening, but thank you for highlighting that.
Okay, great. Thank you for the more information on that.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, I don't want to end it on a negative note. It just was something that stuck out at me, and I wanted to just get a little more info.
No, I understand. And if I may highlight, as you have these, thank you for recognizing CD Folks. The other campus that, along with restorative practices, it has implemented 4 houses now for her second year, is Callison. And you can see, even if you double that, she will not hit the low numbers she had last year.
I think that Callison was going to be 20% less than Nick Glenn last year, even if they doubled from where they are now.
And again, I'm going to say, I don't think these numbers are going to double, but if they do, we are still trending at 2,000 less referrals per year, which is, to me, a celebration and telling me that this team's doing something right for kids.
Absolutely. So I appreciate that, and so thank you for all the work that you and your team are doing. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Could be done. It's said either way. That's a plural verb or noun either way. Team. All right, Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Ms. Shadwell. I'm not going to repeat all that was said, but just say thank you for the work you do and the work your team does on behalf of all those students. And this is more maybe for a broader context. I think Trustee Vesta's point about, and your point as well, about the transient nature of the population. I think that is something that we got to be very mindful of, and making sure that, especially as they're moving from one Round Rock campus to another, that there's good documentation following the child to make sure that when they get to that campus, we know where they're at. I think, one, that helps that student stay on track, and two, I mentioned this when we talked about the ARC at the last meeting. It helps us know if there's an issue at another campus that we need to go in and focus on if we keep seeing a trend of students coming out there that are consistently behind. And so just as a future topic or a report we can get out, just kind of what our procedures are as far as what follows the student. So we have, just so we can, that might be a helpful discussion down the road for the board.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll say that too. I'm glad that we've seen over the years the more detailed about the transient or the mobility rate. I mean, it is enlightening. We don't control what goes on in the economy and where these people move. Apartments maybe open up, got a special deal, sign up for a year, get 2 months free. I've heard of families moving to save 1 or 2 months worth of rent, and it's just so disruptive to children. But we can't control that. What you said earlier is once you're on our campus, or on your campuses, you can take care of them. So anyway, applaud all of the principals there. You guys do a phenomenal job. I hear great things coming out of that, East Round Rock, I'll call it, that part, just friends, family. Oh, yeah, I live in that neighborhood, or that area. So anyway, thank you for your work. Board members, any other comments, questions? Dr. Flores, anything else?
So proud of our principals. And I also think some of the questions that are asked by board members as each learning community presents, maybe having a discussion with Dr. Presley and make one of the learning community meetings where principals are actually learning from each other. You'll see, I mean, if you think, that this is a tight family, watch them learn together. And that in itself is very, very accommodating to know that we're on the right track. So thank all of your efforts for doing that. Keep being learners, because the adults in a learning organization are actually modeling that learning. The board actually models learning as well. So let's be mindful and let's be cognizant, and feel free to get with Dr. Presley, who can then coordinate those efforts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, we'll go to agenda item. Next one, Dr. Flores.
Yes, the last one is instructional technology, and Mandy Estes will introduce Jeff Usselman and his wife, Amy Usselman.
Trustees, I apologize. This will only be Jeff Usselman, who is our Director of Instructional Technology. They do have a very interesting and innovative partnership, because Amy is our Director of Library Services, and I think sometimes that becomes a little bit competitive between the two of them, who can be more innovative in the deployment of their work. Jeff also has his team with him today, so I'll let him introduce them to you. We will make this brief. We had much to brag on with the instructional technology services that Jeff's team provides and supports here in the district. So he's going to hit the highlights for you in the interest of time, but we certainly welcome questions at the end.
Thank you, Ms. Estes. Good evening, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, and the board. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to share with you the initiatives and the work of the Instructional Technology Department. And I just wanted to point out on this top slide, you'll see at the very top those pictures that we put up, it's very purposeful, because a lot of times when people think instructional technology, they're thinking devices, laptops, computers, but you can see we've got 3D printers, we've got Ozobots, we've got Dot and Dash, augmented reality, virtual reality, with lots of different devices and lots of different opportunities for our students. So since we have several new board members, I want to take the time just to kind of give you an overview of the department. Of course, myself, the director, and then I've got Eric Folks here. He is the assistant director, and he supports the Cedar Ridge, Round Rock, and Stony Point learning communities. And Autumn Hebert, she is assistant director also, and she supports the McNeil and Westwood learning communities. Also in our department, we have a learning application specialist, and her job is to really support the over 150 online digital textbooks and resources that we have in our district. She really makes sure the teachers and staff, or teachers and students know how to access those tools. And then we also have 58 instructional technology specialists who are based on the campuses. So when we look at the leadership values for the district, we really believe the instructional technology department is like the granddaddy that can just take all of this in. When we start looking at it, including all, the technology really gives that silent student, the quiet student, a voice. The ELL student, ESL students, it really levels the playing field for them. And just the use of technology programs and different devices, it just really can help students be successful. When we look at investing in growth, having our ITSs on the campuses, they're there to provide that just-in-time training for these teachers, and they also are great models of being lifelong learners. And then under the Inspire Action, with our ITSs there, they have the ability to help the teachers take risks in their classrooms, and by doing that and showing the students, hey, it's okay to try something, and if it might not go great right away, but we'll keep working at it. And so it's really that inspiring action it fits right in there also. Another thing we believe is that a high level of support equals a high level of success. And you'll see here a lot of our ITSs started putting some infographics together to show, hey, how are we impacting the campuses on a monthly basis? And you'll look and you'll say, oh, you know what, they use a lot of the same template, but if you actually look at what's on each of those infographics, they're very specific activities that are very aligned to the specific campus that they're at. And so the ITS has really worked to become part of that campus culture and support the specific initiatives. So I've been talking a lot about how we're focusing on our individual campuses, but as a department, we also work with, I think, every other department in the district. Just some of the things that we've been collaborating on is we created a software approval process, and that was with our department. That was with information services, curriculum, purchasing. We all came together to develop a streamlined process for teachers to be able to request software that we know meets the guidelines of Round Rock ISD, and it also looks at the student data part of it, so make sure that any information we provide to vendors, that we know that they're going to keep that information safe. Under students' online safety and monitoring, I think we work with everyone on this, and we really think this is part of everybody's responsibility. Keeping students safe online is key to our role. And one of the ways that we do that is very proactively by talking to students about digital citizenship, talking to them about making good choices online, and really monitoring them and also modeling for them. We also use some online digital tools. One of them, for instance, is Gaggle, which it monitors a student's email, Google Docs and Drive and their calendar. And what that does is it'll look for there's different types of offenses, from, minor, which a student might get an email from the company saying, hey, we saw this, to very severe, which may be self-harm. And then depending on the severity of what they find, the principal may get an email, or we also have some district contacts that might get an email or contact from the company. And if it's severe enough and they can't get a hold of anybody in the district, they'll actually reach out to law enforcement. So. And then I will point out real quickly, because we have social media up here. We've been working with lots of different stakeholders in the district on social media. That we have policies in place on social media, but what we're trying to figure out is, what do those policies look like in the classroom? And so Autumn's been doing a great job. She's been spearheading a committee, and we're kind of trying to get that together so that we can provide teachers with the real hands-on lessons or experience, so they know exactly what it looks like. Go ahead. Okay. So one of our collaborative projects that we're really proud of is our Laptops at Home program. This program's been in existence for 3, maybe 4 years, and this has been a collaboration between the Instructional Technology Department, Technology and Information Services, and Library Services, where we partner to provide district families in need with a laptop. This last fall, we have about 500 devices this year to hand out. This last fall, we focused on Title I campuses, and we were able to give away about 250 devices to Title I campuses. And we are now starting the application process to give the additional 250 devices away across the district this spring. Excuse me, I think I drink. So. This Hackathon 2018, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Hackathon, but we held our first Hackathon in Round Rock this last October. Didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. Turned out to be an awesome event. And talk about collaboration. This was a community partnership with Code Wizards, Round Rock Chamber of Commerce, Round Rock ISD Partners in Ed. We all came together and put on this hackathon. And it was supposed to go from like 8 to 5 on a Saturday, and I think at 5:45 that afternoon, we still had kids in there trying to present and share what they had done, and it just was a really neat experience. So another huge area of focus for our department is computer science and computational thinking. We know that the job market out there right now is like screaming for people in this field. And so we're really trying to work out, okay, how can we start getting kids in grades, starting kindergarten and on up, getting them some access to some computer science lessons, computer science activities. And so a couple of things we're starting for next year. We're going to add a fundamentals of computer science course at the middle schools. We're actually adding computer science, computational thinking lessons into the ARC in grades K through 8, so they'll have the ability to have some hands-on lessons. And then another thing we'll do, if you follow any of our schools or our department, I'm sure during the Hour of Code week, you probably saw the Twitterverse blow up about all the activities that were going on with Hour of Code. And then really the highlight of the Hour of Code, several of our high schools actually had their students go down to the elementary campuses next door and help work with them and do some coding activities with them. Of course, Round Rock's very committed to supporting students and staff in becoming responsible digital citizens. And so we also provide campuses with lessons on digital citizenship, and all those lessons are created or found by our ITSs. We have a task force that focuses on this, and they share out those lessons with the campuses so that these are all the different areas that we address: acceptable use, cyberbullying, digital footprint and identity, internet safety, and so on. So we are providing campuses with lessons that they can use to make sure that we're doing our jobs of keeping students safe. So now that I've shared some of the efforts of our department, I want to talk to you about how these efforts are impacting the classroom. We utilize the Bright Bites Technology and Learning Survey to provide the opportunity for all staff and students in grades 3 through 12 and parents to provide input into how they think technology plays a key factor in the success of our students. So this survey allows us to collect information and understand how technology influences teaching and learning and focuses on improving the technology environments that provide meaningful learning experiences. So we administered it in October, and you can see there the number of people that responded to the survey. So the survey actually gives us information back in 4 areas. One is the classroom, and that's how technology is being used in the classroom. Another area is on access, and that's on do we have access to the technology in our district. Skills, do students and teachers have the foundation and the foundational and the online and multimedia skills to be able to use the devices. And then on the environment, and that's the district's policies and professional development and the support we provide teachers to make sure that they feel secure in using those devices. So just real quickly, I'll just give you a little overview of the scores. You can see up there, Round Rock ISD, we scored advanced overall. And right below Round Rock ISD, you see all technology and learning. And that is all other districts in the nation who also utilize this survey. And then we have all the schools in Texas that also utilize this survey. So overall, we're advanced, and we're actually advanced in that with the score. You can see we're almost 30 points above even the state of Texas. And then as we move across in the classroom, it's how technology is being used in the classroom. That's we fall in there under proficient. And then under access, we've done a great job over the last several years of really adding additional devices and technology to our campuses so that we're exemplary there. The teachers and students really feel like if they need something, they have access to it. Under skills, again, we're advanced. That's their multimedia skills, foundational skills of teachers and students. And under the environment, those are the policies and support we provide teachers. We also fall under advanced on that. And so I'll just leave you with a couple of quotes to read up there. And at this point, we'll glad to take any questions.
Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for this presentation. I'm excited. There's a lot of things to be excited about in here, and one thing I really do want to touch on is slide 9, the digital citizenship. That's just as our world gets more digital and more gets online, that is such a key thing for our students and staff to understand. I mean, I feel like we see that all the time now. It's every day. Someone is some tweet, Facebook post, but it's something they put online 10, 15 years ago, perhaps whenever they were 18 years old, gets drug up. And it's not reflective of who they are now or what. And so it's just important for students to learn that, especially one for their own selves long term, that affects their own professional opportunities, but also the cyberbullying, them realizing that there are consequences that you may not realize them today, but you're going to realize them down the road. So as much as emphasis we can put on that and ensuring that students have the resources and the knowledge before they leave us, that's just critical. And then I love the laptops at home program. Yeah. Are we doing anything to track those students as far as internet access at home? Because giving them a laptop's great, but they get home, they can't access internet, then...
Yeah, great question. Yes, in fact, we don't necessarily track it, but what we do is on the actual desktop of the laptop, and we actually have to provide them a paper document also, is we give them options to either low-cost internet, I think, and I can't remember that it was AT&T or somebody that maybe has low-cost internet for $10 a month, or somebody does that they can apply for. And then we also give them, okay, where in Round Rock can you go and sit and just use internet? Like McDonald's, I think, is a place, and just give them some options for that also. We also, one of the things working with Mark Gabehart on is we're starting a little pilot where we're trying to put some outdoor wireless access points in, so that if students are there, they can at least go to the school, sit in the playground with their device, and have access. So,
and then gosh, I had a point there, but it escaped my brain because I want to make sure that we're given this tool, they can actually use it to its full potential. I don't know. If you don't know, that's fine. This might be a left field question. Are there any grants out there available that either the district or students can apply for to cover that $10 to give them that internet access?
I think we looked into that at one time, and maybe there was, and I, off the top of my head, I can't tell you. There's a serving center. There's another place in Round Rock where they get device. Is it the Round Rock Serving Center? So where they can get device also, but I don't know that they offer any internet or access or anything for them. So.
Okay, Ms. Weir.
Well, actually, I was going to kind of go along those same lines as Mason, because I noticed we were exemplary for access, but you were looking at school and home. And do we have any idea how many of our students don't have internet access at home? I mean, I think the idea of the wireless access is awesome. I mean, that's a great idea. But, I mean, do we have any sort of sense? They can't answer the survey if they don't have it at home, right?
Right. And so it's kind of a catch-22 on that, right? But the students can answer it because the students take it at school. So they would be able to answer, but the parents wouldn't be able to. So I would have to go back and look. I think top of my head is like 20%. And it varies by school. So and each school gets a report specific to their campus in every area.
And well, I guess that's a whole nother question, whether they then kind of go back to paper sometimes to get information to their parents. Because I know some of the schools, we've talked about it, don't use any paper. But if you've got 50, 60% of your kids that don't have internet access at home, maybe paper needs to be going home for those parents. I don't know.
Got a quick question for you. The hackathon, the coding, what's the coding du jour? Is it past System C, Python? I mean, are you working with industry? Is there...
So for our coding, we're going to use like code.org, because we're talking K through 8 for the most part. Now, high school, they get in, they may be using Python, they may be, but for our hackathon, there was a wide range of coding because it was students 6th through 12th grade, and actually most of them, probably out of that over 100 students, were probably middle school students.
Okay. And I'm sure that, we have Dell as a big corporate, partner of ours, Apple, we have Chromebooks, so I'm glad to see there's so many options and there's so many avenues for our students to explore. And whether they pursue it or not, it's still good for them to know, get exposed to it. And, talking about if you decide you don't want to do it, but at least you have the opportunity here. So.
Well, and we really want to provide them that opportunity because they may not know they're interested in it until they actually try it. And then, so. Yep. And we'd like to get them that opportunity before they get to high school, so that if they say, I want to get this STEM endorsement through computer science, now I can get into it right away.
Yep. Great presentation. Thanks for all your work, all the technology we have here. So, all right. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Usselman. All right, we'll go to agenda item. Let's see, where are we? J. Okay, discussion. Recommend amendments to the calendars, upcoming calendars. Ms. Snow, Ms. Vieira, Dr. Flores.
I'll just go ahead and turn that over to Ms. Vieira and Ms. Snow.
All right. Thank you, President Chadwell and board members and Dr. Flores. Christina Snow has worked extensively the last couple of years with our academic calendars, so she's here tonight to offer some recommendations for some amendments, as well as some drafts for 2021 calendar.
Good evening, President Chadwell, board members, and Dr. Flores. We're going to start, as she's pulling up our presentation, discussing we have two major issues here tonight to present to you, not for action, but for discussion. We do plan to come back next month for action on those items. Our calendar committee is made up of parents, teachers, administrators from the district, from the campus, and we have about 35 different members that have participated in that work. But what we have started to do is come together, and we want to ask you to consider an amendment to our current 2018-2019 calendar for the remainder of the year and for next year's 2019-2020 calendar. And it's a minor amendment. Under some new rules that happened last year, TEA did away with an early release waiver. And so the early release days had gone away on our calendar, and we have noticed that there were a few area districts that had navigated a way to get some early release days for their high schools for the final exam week. And doing some investigations and some calling of TEA and armed with certain information, you're able to get the inside scoop on how to make that happen. It wasn't readily available, but they have confirmed that if a high school provides tutoring on a regular basis, open to all students, that you can then count that as instructional minutes or operational minutes and can buy that time back for early release at the high school level during final exam weeks. So, something we already do in our district. It's best practice for our campuses to provide tutoring. So what we're asking is to amend the calendars to actually just document it on the calendars, and that way we could have early release for all 4 days each semester for final exams for high school at 1:30. This allows for students who have been in exams all day to get home and get studying and rest for the next day's exams. It allows our teachers to give very good, solid feedback on those exams, to meet with parents at the end of the year and at the end of semesters, and some of the transition meetings that have to happen, and graduation practice at the end of the year, to be quite honest. So there's a lot that happens on those days. So we are asking for that amendment. And for this year, the documented tutoring, it's already happening, but documented tutoring would begin on March the 4th and would go through until the day before final exams begin. And that is plenty of time for us to get the minutes that we need to make that happen and be approved by TEA. So that's the first thing we bring to you. And so that's the only thing that would change on those calendars. The second thing that we bring, and you can go ahead and advance to the next, is...
is for 2021 school year calendar. Now, we are working quite a bit in advance. Most of the districts around us are just looking at next year's calendars, but we are a very diverse district, as you know, and we have families from all over the globe, and they travel home to see family, and they plan these trips very far in advance. So we have taken a step further, and we have been trying to plan very far ahead on our calendars. So we're actually looking at the 2021 calendar to get that approved and just try to stay, again, 2 years ahead each year. Just like last year, we are not looking at days any longer. The TEA has us look at operational minutes. So our calendars must have 75,600 in operational minutes. And we have certain numbers of days that we must have for our teachers because of contractual obligations that we have. And then we have, in our last few years, developed the school day into 435 minutes. There were several years where we added time. We're not interested in adding any more time to the children's school day. So that is something that we are working under as an assumption at this time. There's some other things. I won't read the whole slide to you. Really, these are the same things that we looked at last year. You'll see at the second to the bottom, we're hoping to bank 2 instructional days so that we have that built in for bad weather. And we yet to see that this year, but it still could happen. And if it does, if you go past 2 days that are built in, TEA allows for a 3rd day to be waived. So we'll be in good shape. So we don't have to designate those, which has in the past been problematic when we've had to do that. And so the process, we came together, we looked at the draft. I will tell you, the annual calendar for fall of 2020 and spring of 2021 do us lots of favors, and I'm very appreciative. There have been some unpopular calendars, like last year we had Christmas on a Monday, and it kind of didn't work out the way everybody liked it. This coming for 2020, 2021, Christmas, for instance, falls on a Friday, so it makes it very easy. We try to end the school year by Memorial Day for many reasons, ADA reasons, so that we don't have loss in attendance, for graduation ceremonies on a longer weekend, make it easier for families to travel, because a lot of our students are in ACC classes at the high school level, and that usually starts right after Memorial Day. But this calendar, for the 2021 calendar, Memorial Day is on the very last day of May, which makes it very easy, and that allows us to do that and start the year a week later, which will be very popular. It won't be quite as early in August. So I was excited to see this when we started this process. We came up with 5 options on our committee. And we ultimately took votes on 2 before we came to bring these to you. And we only mention this because we are very aware that the 2 options are very similar to one another. But it truly, as you see here, 87.5% and 75% was the backing for the 2 that we bring you. And it was very low on the others. We just couldn't come up with other options that we felt really met the needs of our district, like the 2 that we are bringing you. So again, there are lots of similarities. The high school morning tutoring plan we would also want to carry into the 2021 calendar, so we would have that early release for high schools on final exam days. We would also have the last day for students in December on a Thursday and just 1 day of work day for Friday before the holidays, because our staff needs to get grades together and turned in before they leave for holiday break. We have school year starting the 3rd week of August for that year, not the 2nd week, which would be very popular from the feedback we received last year. School year ends for students and teachers before Memorial Day, which is a goal of ours. Same structure that we've had this year and we'll have next for October, January, and February professional development days that are proposed. And maintaining that full week at Thanksgiving for our staff and students, 2 full weeks off at winter break, spring break, and Good Friday in April. With all of this, the proposed calendars, both of them, have 885 minutes banked for all levels, and that allows us to have 2 days plus 15 minutes banked, so we're good with bad weather days. The differences are actually 1 day difference. Option 1 starts and ends the year on a Thursday. This allows for May final exam week to fit within 1 calendar week, a Monday through Thursday, and then Friday is a staff day, and then you have your graduations at the end of the year. This is a 15-day difference in the semesters. It's traditional that fall semesters tend to be shorter than the spring semesters, just because unless we start really early in August. That's one of the reasons we did start a little earlier these last 2 years, but this would shift it a little bit. And then we wanted to look at, well, what could we do to maybe balance those 2 semesters a bit? So option 2 starts and ends the year on a Wednesday. It's just 1 day different, but it does create a slight split in the final exam week. On a Friday, you'd have exams and then come back on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to finish up at the end of the year for high schools. But it does balance the number of days slightly. It gives you a 13-day difference in semesters. So these are the 2 options that the committee felt strongly that they would like. They look very similar to what you see now, except for the changes that we highlighted there. And again, bad weather days are built in, and as it says there in the smaller lettering at the bottom, TEA does allow for waivers if a 3rd day is ever needed with bad weather. And so we hope to bring these back. We are going to actually put out the calendar options starting tomorrow to the community and to all of our staff in Round Rock ISD to get input and to get feedback. And we will be sharing that input and feedback with you prior to our next meeting. And that will start tomorrow and go through February 3rd in English and Spanish. And we hope to bring these back for hopeful action next month. Do you have any questions?
Great. Mr. Moses.
Just to go back to Trustee Weir's point, the previous it online, is there a way to have these like in the attendance or in the main office at the campuses where parents can go in and view them and provide feedback in that way, just in case they can't view it online?
That have not thought of that in the past, but we absolutely could do that. That's something we could make happen. Absolutely.
Ms. Feller.
So I have a question about the before-school tutoring.
Yes.
Is there a minimum number of students that must attend that?
And I verified with TEA. So after I received some information, saw a letter that was from TEA in writing, I called the head of who is in charge of this department at TEA. And she confirmed that as long as it is offered to all students every day, and all students means all, so it could be an AP student, it could be, top 1% student, any child who is interested in the tutoring, if it's available every day, then that's what meets the criteria. So it doesn't have to be that many children are in attendance, but that it's offered.
Can you tell me more about how that tutoring would be structured? Are you like having a teacher in each core subject area, or
it would
in
be up
the
to
cafeteria? And like how does this work? Like if we're taking minutes away from the day at the end of the year, I wanted to see the value that's added in this tutoring time.
Yeah, most schools the tutoring is done individually by teachers for their students, but they also team that where a teacher from a particular department or team is there providing tutoring on a daily basis for any student who wants to come. So you don't necessarily have to go to your teacher if you need help in math or whatever the subject may be. But that's a standard practice in the district.
Yeah, that's all happening already.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the criteria for TEA, is that we're offering that on an ongoing basis to allow us to have the early release days, especially at high school. So.
Okay.
And to your question also, after, and this is the feedback we got, because this was the first semester in many years that our high schools had full days for their exam. It was very, very difficult. And that was what we were hearing from the principals and the teachers, that the children were spent after 2 huge block exams. So the amount of heavy-duty learning that was happening probably in those last hours was probably not what it could be, and in actually letting the child go home and rest and get studying is probably more beneficial during that week for that child to be able to, student to be able to perform the next day on exams.
Well, and just a personal experience, having 2 kids that have just gone through that the 2-hour study block that happened before the 2-hour exam block was, while it looked great, it was not as beneficial of a study time as they had hoped because of the distractions in the classroom. So they were a little, I think that they would enjoy getting out early and having their own study habits outside of the school as well.
Great. Okay, Mr. Math.
Yeah, just an observation. from a parent's perspective, there's very little difference between option 1 and option 2, and to me, it's 6 on one, half dozen on the other. However, from a teacher's perspective, I would much more prefer option 1 than option 2, because option 2 has the awkward feature of starting on a Friday, and I think a teacher would prefer to have one additional unencumbered summer weekend.
I can't speak to what would be the decision on that. However, traditionally we've had something called professional development trade days that our staff have been able to go to professional development in the summer, and then they are able to trade 2 days. And so that may, if that is a practice that is decided, it's not our committee's in our scope. But if it was, I would imagine that would be one of those trade days that they could go to earlier summer professional development in lieu of coming in on that Friday. Although, as being a principal in this district many years, most teachers are in their classrooms regardless, getting those classrooms ready because they feel that pressure and they're excited about the year starting. So,
Ms. Weir?
I just wanted to follow up on what he said. So when you give us the breakdown of how people voted, can you let us know?
Oh, yes.
Teachers separately from everybody else?
Yes, we will let you know staff and the community separately, and several different questions. We'll have it all broken out for you. So yes.
I've got a couple questions. Does this? And I don't know what the spring break is for UT South by Southwest. We missed it? We were off a week this year. Is that right?
We are aligned with University of Texas, and we are aligned, which is usually what ACC aligns with. And that's why we want to be aligned to them, because ACC and our students are in dual credit. We are not aligned to A&M for this year and next year. They are, UT and A&M have different calendars. But looking at the calendar, there's a very solid midweek during this year, and I think they'll probably all be pretty closely aligned.
It just seemed like it was off one year, and of course it didn't affect me, but I just heard a lot of people saying it was ACC classes and things like that. And the other thing is, that are we still a district of innovation? Are we allowed to move our schedule up? And as long as we get the 75,600 minutes in a year.
Yes.
And you're keeping the day long. We moved the start time up a little bit early, 5 minutes earlier. Was it what, year or two ago? And
then 1 year it was 5 minutes later.
And then five minutes later, and that gives us the flexibility for this banking or whatever.
Yes, sir.
And then what a district does inside of that day, is it how much passing time, how much recess time? That's not state mandated, is it? It's all district. Is it, you can't have 400 minutes of recess, but
exactly. We have best practices. We have a department, our teaching and learning department has worked with our schools and innovation to create best practices in that area, and our schools really do try to align to that. The only state mandated minutes are in physical education.
Okay. All right. Well, Ms. Feller can help that A&M calendar, so she's a graduate there, so maybe she'll work on it. You hear that, Amber? I said maybe you can help A&M with that calendar issue. So, all right. Thank you. That's all I think we have. Look forward to hearing more next month. All right. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Flores, that was it, right? So,
yes.
Okay, we're jumping around. So we'll go to agenda item M, public communications. I don't think we have any. Then go to agenda item N, board announcements, requests for future agenda items. And I know that we have a couple that we're going to discuss for next week. We have a workshop next week, and we can put those on next week. Ms. Weir?
Yeah, in addition to those, I was just curious because we had the speaker talking about dyslexia today, and we had a really long, detailed email about that same issue that we got, and there were some clear guidelines that the board we're going to have to take some action, and I guess this is to Dr. Flores or Dr. Presley. When are we going to maybe see that work? I mean, how soon do we have to do it? What's the process for that?
So we are preparing a board update for you so that you know what we are implementing in that area. There are some required screeners for kindergarten and first grade that have to happen now. We have a plan in place. We have a plan in place for those. The first grade ones have to happen by the end of January. And the information's on our dyslexia website for the district, but we're also providing an update for the board.
Okay. Anything else? Any other requests for agendas or anything like that? Otherwise, we have a meeting next week, this time next week in this room at 6 o'clock. Is that right? I think it's rescheduled. 5:30? I think I put it on at 5:30. I just usually put a time on there, but 6, that's fine. And it'll be a workshop. And I think we're going to add a news feature that we talked about is at our last workshop we had last week was we'll allow some public comment. We have a few topics we're going to cover. I think we talked about that. Is that we're going to try that. So
yeah, I just wondered the public comment and all, is that requiring or shift and changing adoption of policy first? I just want to make sure we follow policy. I know there were several things that were discussed last week at the workshop, and there were some changes that would be made and have been asked for further consideration. But if it's policy, then it needs to be codified, and I would think. So I'll defer to.
Within your policy, you have the ability as a board to modify or waive policies that you have that are local as needed. So I think if there are adjustments we need to make to the board operating procedures, I would say let's go ahead and bring those forward formally with the understanding that then there will be probably some trickle-down effect on local policies that speak to the same issue, and maybe we don't want there to be inconsistency. So I would say let's take it as a two-step process. Let's finalize whatever changes the board was contemplating as a result of the last meeting, put it on as an agenda item and say, okay, are we in agreement that this is what we're going to do? And if so, have the board vote on that, and then at a later meeting we can then bring back policies that are affected accordingly.
Okay. And I'm open for that, and or just I wanted to follow up with some of the things we discussed last week. So
you may want to put that on there as well, so we can address that.
All right. Anything else?
Well, just if that's the case too, I just think that's fine. But I do think that when you talk, there's a police department exploration task force update. I consider that'll be a presentation that we can have in 15 to 20 minutes from our presentation. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions and discussion on that, and we look forward to that as well. Also, the 2020 budget, the first iteration of our budget, that in itself is going to elicit some time. So I just want to make sure that if the items for discussion as well, as far as policy, we think about that. And also tonight was mentioned, as we're talking about agenda items, was the procurement purchasing process for bond resolutions and all that were adopted. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that has to be done and needs to get done, and that we need to bring forward to this board with regards to that. So, however you so move, this is your meeting. This is a board meeting. So let me know what you want to have on that agenda.
Okay. Anything else? Any comments?
Yeah, we also talked this evening about meeting next week about a communication plan. Did we want to add that to the 24th, or that agenda's looking kind of long?
We can try it tomorrow. We'll work on the agenda tomorrow. We'll see how long it goes, but if not, we can try to add it somewhere. But either in a workshop or another one. But so.
I think there was, I don't want to speak, but there seemed to be at least a desire to do that one sooner rather than later, and that would seem to be why
Even
people
if
were,
we have to have a special meeting,
we're willing
we
to
probably
wait
need to
on
get that
that one.
done.
So I think that one was
okay. We can add it and go through and have a discussion on it. So, okay. With that, it's 10:17. We're adjourned.